live 1 second, and then I'm going to hit record. Okay. Good evening, everyone. It is Wednesday, August 26th. This is our Board of Selectmen regular meeting. As the Old Town Hall is being cleaned this evening, we are doing a completely remote meeting for this evening. It is being audio and video recorded. It's not being streamed live on Channel 9. It is being streamed live on YouTube. And I assume that cable will replay it on Channel 9 throughout the week. You can still participate via the Board of Selectmen email, via the number that's on the agenda, and also obviously via the Zoom link that's on the agenda. And so with that, I ask that everybody stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic
for
which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Selectman Goulart, should we stand for the moment of silence?
Yes, please.
Okay, thank you. Sorry about that.
Mr. Chairman, I mentioned the passing of John Manning since our last meeting, and in his memory, I ask for a moment of silence, please. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Selectman Goulart. First on our schedule appointments, we have our Finance Committee Chair here, Mr. Ed Swartz, to discuss budget transfer requests. And so these were the ones from a few weeks ago, right, Mr. Chairman?
Yeah, so I also have Mr. Roach here. I invited
Hi, Mr. Roach.
all the members of the Finance Committee to join with us because we didn't know what, we didn't post the meeting, so we wouldn't have been voting on anything, but we didn't know what you guys wanted to discuss in regards to the requests because we did go through them all that night, do all of the transfers that were requested and have moved on. So we
Sure, that's why I was a little
questions, and that's fine.
I actually don't. If my colleagues do, I'm going to give them the floor, but I did, just for a point of clarification, Madam Administrator, was this something, who requested the Finance Committee to come in for this?
I did.
Okay, I couldn't recall, and I wasn't sure if this was for that. So if you want to have the floor, Selectman Goulart, you have it.
Yeah, I asked that we meet with the Finance Committee because I saw the meeting and I heard the discussion, and I was not aware that this meeting was going to take place. And after I saw it, I realized the Board of Selectmen should have been present. My main concern was that I have a very long working relationship with the Finance Committee, and I did not feel that some of the discussion really reflected what this Board of Selectmen and the town administrator, and quite frankly, department heads went through in trying to figure out how to deal with the situation that we were dealing with, which was a large amount of vacation time and what to do with it. We did have a lot of discussion. I don't know if the Finance Committee saw any of those meetings. It was on the agenda a number of times. And I just thought it was important that we reach out to the FinCom, because I personally felt that I didn't want any impressions left that would harm the relationship with the Finance Committee. I can tell you, which I already stated, this was not an easy decision. We had to take into consideration not only the concerns about this large amount of vacation carryover and how we were going to deal with it. And that's how we came up with three options. Take it, get paid for it, carry over some, whatever. And also using money in the FY20 budget to encumber against that money. I know that suggestions were made, like, just tell them, take vacation, tell them they're off. You can't do that in a union shop. You have to follow the rules, then you have to follow what you've negotiated. Now that's behind us relative to getting through the end of the year and closing the books, and based on the information that we had at the time, working with the town accountant, I feel we did the right thing. And I just wanted the FinCom to have an opportunity to, if they wanted to ask questions about what occurred, or they just want to say, it's over, go, it's done, we move on. We move on, but we're also dealing with FY21. And the board and the department heads have had a number of discussions about not only what happened and what we dealt with in FY20, but what happened in FY09 when the state did not send us our last chapter local aid money. So anyhow, I hope that the way the year ended and what action we took as a board is understood. If you don't understand why we did it, or you have questions, certainly we can answer them. But I just want to make sure going forward, our relationship is the same as it has been for the FinCom, at least for all the years I've been involved with either the FinCom or as a selectman.
So if I may, Mr. Chairman. So I'm going to speak for myself, and Mr. Roach can add his points in, but no offense taken, Nance, it's one of those that we understood what you guys were doing. I just think we just disagreed with it. I think we made that kind of clear at the meeting before that too, but we're, in my opinion, we are past that. I think from the FinCom, I think you focused on that piece of it in the meeting. I think that what we'd like to hear is what's being done to address the other big issue that came up at that meeting. And that's the over expenditures with not knowing from the Board of Health. I think that was a far more pressing issue at that transfer meeting than, hey, we disagree on philosophically what you guys did, but that's the role and the decision and the determination with the facts that you guys had to make that. There's no ill will held to that. We disagree with it. That's fine. That's our prerogative. So there's no, and we don't take that stuff personally, but I think from us to the Board of Selectmen, the bigger issue is what is being done to address so we don't end up in a situation, not so much the vacation thing, but $80,000 to the Board of Health that was unaccounted for at the end of the year that we had to go find a way to do a transfer to take money that we could have been utilizing for if the state doesn't come through with all their money, or those things, so we don't end up at the end of next year with something else. And shame on everyone takes a piece of the responsibility, but I think we made it clear that night that ultimately the Board of Health needed to know their budget and know what kind of money they had left, and what is being done so that doesn't happen again. So no ill will, Nance, no hard feelings. We understood what you guys were doing. We just wanted to share what our thoughts were. And, some of us would have probably taken a different option than what you guys did, but that's ultimately what your leadership role is to do. So there's no hard feelings to that at all. So
thanks, Ed. And I just want to say, I mentioned vacation because I got to tell you, the other transfers that came up, there was it seems to me there was a large amount of overtime at the end of the year. I think it was the fire department. And I don't have any answers for you. The one that I was really involved in with my fellow board members and with Mrs. Aronstein dealt with vacation. The Board of Health transfer request and the others beyond that were large. Those were surprises to me too. So thank you.
And We have a 6:15, so I do wanna stay on schedule, but I think we all actually shared that concern as well, Mr. Chairman. And I guess to your point about what are we gonna do, I think I made it perfectly clear. I think it was at a department head meeting, Madam Administrator, where I basically said, we're not gonna tolerate it anymore. Manage your budget. Everybody is expected to manage your budget. We may not have the money next fiscal year. It may not even be an option to do an 80,000, for example, a really big end of year transfer. And so that is what it is. So we'll see how it shakes out. But I think we made it perfectly clear at the department head meeting after that meeting, the first one after that, that was our position as a board.
Right, one of the big things with them, with that issue, was that the contract was signed in May of 19. So prior to the year even starting, so they had plenty of time to update.
Correct.
Assuming this, we've got the same thing in May of 20. So have they looked at their budget?
Yes. Yeah, Madam Administrator.
So I can just add a little bit. Immediately following that meeting with the Finance Committee, we sent over kind of an Excel spreadsheet for them to utilize when they pay all their invoices, just to track it constantly. The town accountant and I are going to monitor them every month, along with everything else that we, like I monitor the Board of Selectmen budgets, make sure we're in target, and our staff uses those spreadsheets for us because it's a lot of different costs like public buildings and it's a little chaotic. We are also going to use, if we have a fall town meeting, which is up for discussion tonight, that opportunity to fund lines that may look a little shaky. And obviously the Board of Health is a prime target for that discussion. And I guess they all know better after these discussions and sort of the public discourse about it on a main stage. So there's that aspect of it. And they do have a new chairman. So I think there's a handful of changes going on there that should prevent this from happening again.
So if I may, Mr. Chairman, just one other thing to that point, and not just the Board of Health, that I don't know how, I'm not there every day to see, but the interaction from department heads to the town accountant needs to have a good flow to it, because ultimately the town accountant should have thrown up a red flag when we have these types of situations. I look at the Finance Committee budget when he sends it out every month. So, but obviously someone in the Board of Health wasn't looking at, so he's our last line of defense to know, without having to burden someone else to go line by line every month and look at. So, we need to assure that the town accountant's reviewing that, because we always knew if there was somebody that was getting flagged, especially in June, we would have known in June and not in July. So, but that's it. Nancy, I appreciate you asking the question and inviting us for that. So just so it would clear anything up with you guys, but we're more so about making sure that we don't end up with transfers at the end of the year, similar to this year going forward.
And
I think we're unanimous on that.
Yeah. So.
I think the emphasis that the town administrator gave at the department head meeting, and I believe the accountant did too, Mr. Laviolette, for department heads to be reviewing those monthly reports. That's why they take the time to prepare them. So I think we're all in agreement there for sure.
And then the last thing, I think I saw in your agenda, you're approving, or you did previously approve maybe it was in the minutes, the new requisition form, which should be a good thing. That should help to be able to monitor at least some of those larger purchases along the way. I'm not sure if I agree with the whole system of it, but at least we now have some type of system in place in regards to it. So I think that's a step in the right direction.
Thank you.
And the last thing I will say, I'm here as long as you guys want me to be here.
Well, you can stay as long as you want. We like the company.
So no, but in general, as you guys know, I did sell my house in Dayton, but since we don't have a residency requirement, I'm leaving it in the hands of the fine people in Dayton to say, Ed, it's time for you to go, but I will stay here because I enjoy it. I want to continue to give back to the community that gave to us for 20 years. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ed. Thanks,
Have a
Peter.
great night, guys.
You too. And thank you all for joining. Okay, we have the ADA self-evaluation plan, and I believe we have our ADA coordinator here. Selectman Pacheco, I know you've been involved as well as Madam Administrator. Is it okay with everyone if we start with Mr. Gale, if he wants to sort of summarize, however you would like to present it, and then maybe we can ask questions as things arise, and then if Selectman Pacheco and Madam Administrator want to add anything, you can take the floor. So Mr. Gale, oh, sorry, yep, Selectman Pacheco?
Yes, did everyone have an opportunity to take a look at the evaluation?
No, I have not had a chance, but that's all right. Go
Okay.
ahead, because I will look at
Yeah.
it.
Yep, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Gale?
He's on mute.
Let me see if I can unmute him. Nope, he'll have to unmute himself. It doesn't let me. Mr. Gale, you have to unmute yourself. I hope he's not giving us the summary. I think Ken is contacting him.
No, it wasn't.
Oh,
You want me
sorry.
to?
I saw you looking down. I'm like, oh, maybe he's texting him.
No.
Madam Administrator or
Yes.
Selectman Pacheco, did you want to just start and then when he unmutes? Yes, that's a good point. I'm going to send him a chat if one of you would like to just start the discussion or the summarization.
Go ahead, Selectman Pacheco.
Yeah, I don't mind starting off. If you've had an opportunity to look at the evaluation, you realize how much work we have to do. It may be some expense to the town, but the ADA Commission will be meeting soon. We now have enough members to have a meeting. I just got a message from Mr. Gale saying he is muted, but it's not on his end.
There's no, I can mute people, but it doesn't, I didn't mute him, so it doesn't let me unmute him. It just says ask to unmute. And even if I muted him, if he clicks the mute button, it would still unmute him.
Yeah. Is he on the phone or is he on the computer? Do we know?
That's a computer. That's a computer.
Okay.
I can say a little bit about this, if you want to contact.
Yeah, I'm gonna text him.
Okay. I'll just pick up this ball. So we hired KMA Access to conduct this audit. They did exterior properties, playgrounds, public spaces, and public buildings. There's a separate audit for each section. So Selectman Goulart, that's how I broke it down by reading it, because it is rather lengthy and huge. So I just took the different categories and went through it, but they give a variety of suggestions on how we can eliminate our accessibility barriers. As you can imagine, there's quite a few. We don't have to be perfect. We don't have to enact everything. It just is some suggestions on what to do to make certain areas, and this is like everything, programs, water fountains, access to playgrounds. It really runs the gamut. How we can make that a little bit more accessible to someone who may be bound or confined or deaf or have any sort of disability. So going through there, I don't really want to jump off the plan, I guess, but I do want to make it clear that MOD is offering another grant round and funding may or may not be there, but we're going to go for it anyway. Jonathan and Selectman Pacheco and I had a quick meeting about what we would go after for funding, and we decided we would try for engineering costs. So I had a great conversation today with the folks that did our audit and kind of broke up the project as to what we were looking for. And so my two, personally for me, I'll speak for myself, I really would like to fix this ramp in front of Town Hall because I see it every day and I see the struggle that some folks have, and put an elevator in. And so when I was talking to this engineer architect, I said to him, can we roll this into one project? Because if you're bumping out the building a little bit, you're automatically going to have to fix the ramp all at the same time and the parking lot. So we started talking about hitting all the boxes at once and be more efficient. That might cost us a little bit more, but saves us in the long run because we don't reserve those smaller projects that would be a little bit more expensive to run on their own. So that's kind of the status of where we're at now, but the plan, I think it's very comprehensive. There are some things we don't necessarily agree with, but the KMA folks did provide us the opportunity to not rebut, but like expound upon the certain conditions that those properties may be under. One of them is it's a historical building. So clearly it's a little bit different than modern code compliance, ADA compliance, buildings and structures. So that is all taken into account.
Can everyone hear me now?
Yay, yes.
Yes.
Yay, yes, we can.
There is hope at the end of the world, I'm just saying.
Take it away.
You
Okay.
have the floor.
Mallory, thank you, by the way, for summing up what you did. Why that happened, I have no clue. So before I begin anything, first of all, just that everyone knows, I don't use a camera. I don't need a camera, so I don't use a camera. Having said that, and I also don't really do much screen sharing because it takes me very long to have to listen to things and find documents. So I tend not to do that if I don't have to, especially for long reports such as these are. I'm going to begin, frankly, by thanking Mallory for all of the work she put into, along with all of the department heads of the town, but especially Mallory, for making the grant possible, doing the heavy duty work and the lifting to get it out and get it in on time and so forth. We were very, very lucky with having KMA involved in the process. They have an extremely good reputation for doing this. Their reports are thorough, well thought out. And frankly, considering they were starting this around the time of the beginning of all of the shutdowns and so forth, and there were so many things and balls up in the air for every single organization they work with and everything we had to do in the town, I think that they and the town did an extremely good job coming together and making this happen, because it also had to include a number of distancing site visits and so forth. So having said that, there are several parts to this, Nancy, when you get a chance to read it. Some of them are quite lengthy, frankly.
Thank you.
And I do think also, I'm going to recommend that each of the department heads at some point be given a copy, at least of the main body of the report, so that they know what's there and what's not there. I think also because over time, going down the years, as we put together plans for years down the road, there'll be budgets involved and so forth, things like that. I think it would make sense for the FinCom to also have a copy of the recommendations going forward, along with whatever else occurs in the future. The plan, in my opinion, to some extent, is a kickoff of not so much what I need to do, but what the town needs to do in order to put our house in order as time goes on for the next several years when it comes to ADA compliance and also needs, because some things are needs and not necessarily a compliant issue in this report, and for other things as well. What I think we're all going to find as we look at this is that there are some things we can do fairly immediately that are not necessarily expense related, but more time related. And those are things related to things that we can do around putting together some policies and procedures and postings and so forth, those kinds of things. There are other things that we can do on a shorter term as well, such as signage around town. If Tom is still on with me and with the rest of us, things regarding to parking lot signs and raising signs or moving signs. Those are things that can probably be done on a more immediate basis that theoretically would involve less time or less cost. And that's something to be determined.
Mr. Gale?
Yes.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but I did have a question along those lines, if I may.
Sure.
Regarding just the different projects and how, so we all agree and we know a lot of work needs to be done around town. We all know that, and we knew that when we made this one of our goals, and we accepted that. How do you think that the commission will prioritize the projects? Is it going to be the facilities that need the most work to become compliant or to be accessible for those with disabilities go first? Or will it be just based on feasibility in terms of this building or this facility doesn't need that much, we could get this done relatively cheap and fast?
I think to answer your question, Brett, it's a little bit of both.
Mm-hmm.
And what I mean by that is there are some projects where if we're building centric, we can look at, but we can't necessarily do anything about it right away, with the exception of our research, with grants, with engineering studies, so that they're ultimately going to become long-term projects. So, as Mallory was alluding to the ramp, for example, and whether there may be an elevator at town hall and other things like that, those are ultimately potentially going to become projects that are going to be long-term, and expensive. But at the same time, those are things that I think, as the commission begins to do its work, needs to start looking at and being involved in. I think the commission, because as we get started next month and we're going to be in our infancy, we need to also take it a little bit, as much as I would love us to get off the ground running, we need to take it a little bit slow and get our feet wet with the town and hear from town residents and town officials what they would like to see done early on, with given the report that we have in hand now. There are some things, as I'm saying, I think we can do to get us off the ground and let the town know that we're out there, that we're trying to take measures to put things in place to make a difference. And those are things initially that are going to start out that are not necessarily going to have significant, if any, dollar values associated with them, but more things of time. And I think it's important that the town sees that we're making the effort first, because we don't even know yet what we're going to be expecting in terms of time. We don't know what the town's going to have for future budgets down the road because of what's going on right now. So I don't know if that answers your question.
No, absolutely. I just wanted to say, Mr. Gale, you and Selectman Pacheco have really pioneered this, and I feel like we're in good hands in terms of the commission and the work that you're going to do on this. So I fully trust that the commission will prioritize things in terms of feasibility, and then just getting the ball rolling on things that might take longer. So full faith in you guys.
I do think that our town administrator is very proactive, and frankly, kudos to Mallory, because that makes all the difference in the world. When you have a town manager administrator who's proactive and does everything he or she can to support the concept, it really does make things go a lot smoother. I think the biggest things, frankly, are just going to be what we have to identify and where we want to identify. Those are going to be the big nuts going forward. We have the different evaluations that you have in front of you. We have the different reports. As I said, the big report. I think one of the takeaways that I get from the overall report is, if I look at the report on page, and I can't see it, so I'm going on memory here, page 9. I don't know if anybody has it over there, but I think on page 9 there's references to town contracts, I think it is. And I think that's something that ultimately has to be determined between the Board of Selectmen and the town administrator and the coordinator, whether that's something for the coordinator to be involved in, or that's something ultimately for the entire commission, once it's put together, to be involved in. Because that's really, I don't know if that's necessarily commission's work as much as it is for the commission to review language and so forth as well, because all of the town contracts that the town is involved in should have, and going forward at some point will need language in them, ADA language. And that's going to not just govern the work that's done, but the hiring practices and principles of the companies who the town has outside contracts with.
Madam Administrator, did you have a point about the point that Mr. Gare raised about contracts? You have
Thank you. Not so much contracts, not as specific and in the weeds as that, but that the way I view this commission, now that you have a quorum, you're going to hopefully digest this report, prioritize it in the way that we're kind of already doing, trying to get ready for this grant round, and then make recommendations. And if one of your priority recommendations out of that commission is to look at contracts because you deem it as something, I don't mean simple, like easy, but like something we don't have to contract with a third party, or we can just do that in and of ourselves here, then we would kind of take that punch list and go with it. So that's how I view it, to be proactive with me.
I think that's what I was envisioning. I'm not a member of the commission, of course, but as a Board of Selectmen member, that's how they would make a recommendation to us on what they would like to see.
And that's what I would bring to the commission, because there is language that the state likes to see in contracts now. And that has been enforced for a few years, and it's still changing legislatively a little bit here and there, but It's language that should be in place, and I think we just need to make sure it's there. Once it's put together, it's not something that I think the commission needs to be looking at every single one of the town's contracts to do. That's something, as long as the administrator and the different folks involved make sure that that language is in there. Those are the kinds of things I can suggest for that. I think other than that, I think the different managers should spend some time looking at this. I'd like to be able to sit down with the different department heads at some point, and bring some information to them, and as well bring some information back to the commission as to focusing more on what their needs are based on what we have here. The town does need to set up a TTY system. That's pretty clear in here that we need to do that. So we need to have access to doing that. We do have certain things in place already, more, but we need to firm it up with regard to accessible resources and so forth. The website is a concern and a question mark. I've actually, for myself, I will say I've just started taking a class this past weekend, which is for 12 weeks on accessible web development, not because I can do it, but I want to understand more about it, so that I'm more proactive as a person in the town for ADA with regard to what should be and what shouldn't be to make us as accessible as possible. I also think that down the road, the commission is going to need to start to get into the grant process. Now, we're hopefully get into some of that a little bit by the time we get off the ground this year with the town administrator, because there's a deadline for that a grant of October 9th. So hopefully we'll be involved in that prior to, as a commission, as opposed to just, myself and the town administrator and a few others. But down the road, I hope that we're very involved in different types of grants as well. I know I've had some discussion with Mr. Rhymes with regard to the playground recently. Mr. Ferry and I have talked about some of the projects that he's involved in, and they're doing, for example, the sidewalks and so forth as well. So I think what the report does is it makes it clear that somehow ADA touches components of most aspects of town life. Some, at a higher level and at a more needy level, and some at a less needy level, but just there in the background. But I think that over time, the biggest thing is going to be for the town to be aware that there are projects to be done and there will be expenses to have to be had. Not yet, but down the road. So I don't know what questions all of you have or how you'd like me to expand on different components of the report.
Selectman Goulart?
Yeah, so for the immediate future, are we going to take care of the ramp in the meeting hall at the old town hall? I know we're waiting for information from the building commissioner, but I assume that project's going to go.
So
We can expect that to happen.
So that project, I have met with the building commissioner, and we've also reached out to the state as well, because we're going to need a variance in order to build the ramp. It has to go from the door, the side door there, as you face the stage to the right, to come up to the stage. So we're going to have a variance from the Commonwealth, and that's from the Board of Architectural Access. So I'm in the process of, started this week, of putting that document together. I've had some consultation with the building inspector, and I'm going to be having more, I hope, with him in the next day or two, because there are a couple of ideas that the Mass Office of Disabilities came back with as well for measurements as alternative possibilities to make sure, to the best of everyone's ability, that the request for the variance will go through. So that's in a process. And once we get this filed and get the variance, then I'm assuming the process of construction can begin. I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah. Another thing I thought about, when you first became the ADA person in town, you and I had a long conversation, and you talked about sign language services for meetings. Is that in the report?
It does, yes.
Okay.
It does indicate in the report the different types of services, the different types of interpretive services as well that could or should be available in different situations. So an example for that would be if a person in town has an emergency situation, or even has a need to call the police or the fire department, and is deaf or hearing impaired. For that person to be able to have direct communication with a police officer, there may have to be interpreters called. So we need to identify, I have the list. If somebody called me, I have the information on who to contact, but we need to make it much more available so that everyone has it. And That's something that I want to work with the members of the commission early on. These are the things, Nancy, that we can do to reach out and make sure that everyone has it via the commission component so that the commission can take ownership for getting things like this out as well.
Okay, we also talked about, for example, town meetings. Now,
That's
all of
right.
us have seen the governor and
So
having a signer there.
let me, glad you brought that up because that was one of the things I was going to bring up. I think it's important for the town to begin at least having interpreters, not necessarily cart services, because that's a separate expense. But I do think it's important for the town to begin thinking about, maybe even at the next town meeting, having interpreters at the meeting. And I use the word interpreter with an S on the end because you need more than one. The way that interpreting service works is interpreters will generally sign for 30 to 40 minutes, and then they switch off to another interpreter. And if there is more than one dialogue going on, for example, if there are audience members asking questions, you'll also have a second interpreter by the side of that person doing the audience Q&A component. So one is doing, the Board of Selectmen or FinCom, whoever, town officials, and the other one is doing the public. And that's a back and forth process. Now, I can't tell you how many people would come to a meeting who are deaf or hearing impaired. Maybe one, maybe three, maybe none. But I think it's a way, and yes, there is an expense involved in it of at least a few $100s, but I think it's a way of beginning to get the town to see what's involved and to see what it takes and to see what needs to be done, as well as making that available to people who might otherwise not come or participate. So my feeling is it's something that we should start potentially with the next town meeting. We're starting a process. We're doing it every town meeting after that. It becomes part of the budget for the future going forward, and the town expects it. And I personally think, and I think that the members of the commission would feel that that sends a strong message to the rest of the town about our inclusion process. Again, and it might invite members of the deaf community or hearing impaired community to participate. So I don't know how the Board of Selectmen feels about that, but I'd like to hear, because I think it's something to think about, and I can clearly look into the costs and provide them to the town administrator.
Mr.
Okay, just
Gale?
one other question about
Oh.
the old town hall. In the report, is there a mention of the push buttons for automatic doors on both floors?
There are mentions of all the doors in every building.
Okay, thank you.
That's the answer I can give you for now.
Okay, thank you.
Selectman Pacheco, I do want to hear from you. Before I do, is it okay if I ask Mr. Gale a question before I forget?
No. Yes, of course.
Well, I forgot that question. What was it?
So, Mr. Gale, regarding the, so my position, I guess, regarding the interpreter or interpreters at the special town meeting coming up in what is, I guess, proposed to be November, I'm okay with exploring that. I'm okay with, if you'd like to, you obviously have more expertise than us on the board, I believe, in this regard. So if you would like to reach out, maybe gather some quotes, so we have an idea of how much it would be to have interpreters for a 1 or 2 hour or 3 hour special town meeting. I would love to see that data.
No, I will get that and provide it. The interpreters generally for something like a town meeting are interpreters that are licensed by the Commonwealth and recommended by the Mass Office of Deaf and Hard of Hearing.
Mhm.
So generally it requires going through the Commonwealth to get interpreters for town meeting, as opposed to calling a licensed interpreter in an emergency situation. It's a different animal. But I can definitely get that information and provide that to the town administrator to send to you folks.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And my other thought is, I'm obviously not an expert on what the state law would be in regards to whether an interpreter needs to be there or not, or if it, I assume you can always have one if you want. I don't know if you are only legally obligated to provide one specifically when it is requested, but I still really am curious to see how much it would be. And the other thought that I have, Mr. Gale, is how many people do we have in town with disabilities who may have stopped coming to town meetings, ages ago, because they didn't have those availabilities, we'll say. So I would be curious to see if we did it, if we were getting at future town meetings, more disabled folks to come out. I think that would be great. But either way, I think it would be worthwhile. I do want to see the data on that. So I
I
would
think-
appreciate that.
Brett, I think what I would say to you for that as well is we don't know how many people might have come out and how many people would come out. But,
Mhm.
you know, nowadays also remember that a lot of what's being put out there, including tonight, is also in other formats. For example, it's on YouTube and it's put out by cable as well. And in many cases, it's done live. So there may be people who have a disability who otherwise can't come out, but would like to be participatory and know what's going on in real time. So I would keep that in mind also. And then second to that is there are other people that have other disabilities such as wheelchair, in which some cases it's hard for them to get to the locations where they might have a public meeting. And an example very quickly of that would be having a meeting at the middle school in the future. If there are meetings at the middle school in the future, we may need to rethink that, because one of the things that was discussed in the report was if you're going to have public meetings at the middle school, then you again need to look at having a ramp to the stage. Right now, we don't have the proper ramp to the stage in order to do that. So things are going to have to somehow be thought about and changed. And, you know, I think you hear what I'm saying going forward. We need to look at different aspects of it. It's not a one size fits all.
Absolutely. And the last just point I wanted to make, not question, is I was looking through the self-evaluation and transition plan, and I took particular interest in the website. And the reason is, Mr. Gale, that we're coming up on our last year in our contract with the website vendor. They are going to upgrade our website or revamp our website at the end of the year, or start sometime towards the end of the year. I would like to get together with the ADA Commission when we start those conversations and go over some of the recommendations and maybe try to implement some of those recommendations when we do this revamp. I think that would be a good time to do it. What do you think?
So there are, first of all, that I'm gonna begin by saying that upgrading the website is wonderful. However, there's always a caveat, unfortunately. The caveat is that upgrading the website sounds wonderful, but if the folks who are doing the upgrading are not well versed at accessibility, then we're still going to be faced with the same challenges. So I think it behooves the Board of Selectmen and the town administrator to make sure that the contract for whomever is going to be managing and upgrading the website has the background and the expertise, and specifically the training, the specialized training on how to make websites fully accessible for speech, as well as large screen readers, because they're two different things. Having said that, there are several organizations in Massachusetts that will evaluate the website and determine what we actually need on a micro basis. So I'm going to be providing that information to the town administrator so that she can provide it to you as well, because I don't know, you know, it depends on what you want to do is going to determine how expensive or inexpensive it is for a full, complete review and what's necessary going forward. It's not very expensive, but it's something that I personally think should be done. And I'd like to provide you with the information to make a decision on whether you want to do that.
I would love that, Mr. Gale. Madam Administrator?
Just for a full picture on that puzzle, I've already had the conversation with the website designer that we are looking to go fully ADA compliant. So that bug's already in their ear. Whether or not they're fully certified or whatever, I do not know that, but they're already prepared that that's the path we're going down. Just so everyone's aware, because we're talking about it.
I want to get to Selectman Pacheco, but to your point, Madam Administrator, they do, Revise, our website vendor, they do websites for towns and cities all over the country. So I would actually be surprised if they did not have someone there who was expertised in this specific operation in terms of the website technology.
I will provide the town administrator with the specific code information that she will need to bring back to the developers to see whether or not they have that criteria and the licenses in order to do that.
Thank you, Mr. Gale. And Selectman Pacheco, I'm giving you the floor. We are a minute over, but you have not spoken, and you were the selectman tasked with this. So you have the floor, and everybody will have a chance to speak on the additional meetings, appointments coming up. So no one will get cut off. So Selectman Pacheco, you have the floor.
Yes, so just briefly, Dr. Z, I should have known when you said you had one question, you really had four questions.
Never let it happen.
So before I start yielding back to you, I'm going to be a little bit more careful. But basically, I just want to say that the ADA Commission will review all of this and have recommendations to the board. As far as, a signer at our meetings, we need to look at the costs. We need to look at it if it's feasible. It may not be possible for a November meeting, but clearly for our annual town meeting, we should seriously think about that. But we have to look at all the information that's available. But the ADA Commission will review this report. Now, we have a diverse group of people in the ADA Commission now, and I saw on Facebook somebody else is interested also in joining the ADA Commission. So we'll have a diverse group. We'll prioritize what we want to do. I'm in agreement with our town administrator that an elevator and the ramp are two of my top priorities. So I'm glad we're going to go down that road. But there are other things, as Mr. Gale said, that we can do that aren't expensive. The website, some of the language, getting information out to the public, our Facebook page, and that kind of stuff. So I look forward to working with Mr. Gale and the other members of the commission. As you know, I'm not a voting member, but I will be the liaison person for the commission. And clearly, Dr. Z, when we start talking about the website, you can come and speak because you have some expertise in that field, which I don't have. So thank you.
Thank you. I
would just add quickly, because I know you want to move on.
No, it's okay, Mr. Gale. You have the floor.
It's important, and I want to make this clear from my perspective. I think that the town is taking the right steps to do what they need to do at the right time. I think what the town also needs to recognize a little bit is that even with some of the things that have been considered or still being considered, to check with the commission to make sure that if there's things you want to put in place in certain ways or certain procedures, that we at least are aware of it and give it a thumbs up or a thumbs down. And I'm going to use an example, which is, and I want to make this clear, not pointing any fault, because it's simply, if you don't know, you don't know. And that would be, for example, the electric stations, the 2 charging stations. I'll use that as a simple example. The recommendation is that one of the charging stations be turned at a different angle so that people who have disability can reach. So that it's in with reach distance and it's within correct parking distance for doors to open and so forth. That's not something that normally would be thought about when you're putting in a charging station, but it's something that the commission has to think about when a charging station or something to that equivalent is putting in. So I am not, with an emphasis on not, faulting anyone for that whatsoever. But I'm just trying to say these are the little things that in order to ultimately become compliant need to be thought about in advance so that we can make sure it doesn't come back to us later.
Thank you, Mr. Gale. I appreciate your honesty and I agree with you. I think what we need to, and I'll just use myself as an example, just talking about the electric charging stations, I think we all need to get into the habit, me especially, of reaching out to the ADA coordinator on any sort of project where you're gonna not build something, but where you're gonna need some handiwork, if you will.
Mhm.
I will get into that practice and that habit going forward. So I do pledge that to you, Mr. Gale, and the ADA Commission.
The commission. I
Absolutely.
appreciate it. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Does anyone else have any other questions for me or any thoughts before you guys decide to move on? Or
Selectman Goulart?
No, I'm all set.
Madam Administrator, did we need to accept this or no votes on this?
Nope, we got it. It's ours. We're working on it. Simple.
Sounds good. Well, I look forward to many recommendations coming down from the ADA Commission in regards to many different things with the town. So I mean that sincerely.
it is my hope that over time we become, I hate to use this, a force to be reckoned with.
Absolutely.
And I think we will. And I think that the commission and all the work that they'll do over the next several years will make the town proud. I will just ask as a point of information, as I put the commission together and call our first meeting and so forth, can I get some guidance, or I can always have this discussion offline, whether we need to also set this up with cable and so forth. And these obviously they're public meetings, but who should I reach out to for the guidance on how to proceed?
Mr. Gale, we can get you, I'll forward you or give to Selectman Pacheco the cable committee email address. You can just email them and let them know when your meetings are.
Okay,
If
It's not
they're,
a requirement though. Like,
Yeah,
it's not a requirement to be recorded unless you are participating remotely without a physical quorum. So it's a conversation for, I can start. I'll start and point you in the right direction.
okay, thank you, Mallory.
and you will, I assume, have access to the Zoom, we will be able to,
Yes.
would be able to set up a remote meeting. and
Yeah, I
all.
think especially because we are a commission of disability, it's really important for us to make sure we are as accessible as possible from day one.
Absolutely.
Thank you all for the time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank
Gale.
you.
So much. And thank you to our library board of trustees for being patient. We appreciate it. So we are continuing our discussion. Madam Administrator, did
Yes.
you want to set the scene for us on this one?
Sure. I don't have too much to say. It's a carryover from a previous meeting we had that was specific to sort of generally the future of the library. We had to close the library because of COVID, obviously. And then when the decision to reopen that library was before us, we couldn't adequately socially distance there. So we've set up a little, like, I don't know, transient operation there, and sort of the library is sort of all over as a temporary solution so that we can keep providing the service. But the building is still very much a big part of our discussion. So there was a brief discussion about, or rediscussion, I guess, brief rediscussion about making the library part of the primetime building accessible for the library to use. And so now we have all of those folks in the room, the Zoom room, to have that discussion and continue it. And the building commissioner's here on a phone, and the fire chief is here as well.
Okay.
You can see him.
So before we get started, and I mean this question seriously, what do we want to accomplish from this conversation? Do we want to approve? I thought we had an idea of what we wanted to do with the library.
Well, I think ideally we all want a new one,
Correct. But we have some
are struggling
immediate.
with opening it now. And so Building Commissioner Aguiar presented kind of what needed to be done in order to open that building up. And the cost for everything on that list was like $200,000. You folks whittled it down a little bit to just the absolutes. And Jim, hop in if I'm wrong. It's somewhere around 75. I don't know why I have that number, but it might be 100. And so we're dabbling with going to town meeting and asking for funding. We're dabbling with using CPC funds. We're just trying to figure out the best way to go forward and resume the services at the library.
Mr. Commissioner, if you'd like to, you might be muted, so I apologize if you are. You'll have to unmute yourself. You have the floor. I felt like I heard him.
I think he's still muted. Jim, it's *6 to unmute on the phone.
No.
There it is.
There we are.
Sorry, I was used to my cell phone.
No, it's okay.
So, sorry about that. I won't repeat what Administrator Aronstein indicated to, because she's spot on. The only thing I'll add is that I met with 2 contractors, and this is just to get the main level open. That would be accessibility, restroom, ADA compliant restroom, spreading things out a bit. And the 2 prices were between 75 and 100,000. And both contractors would not render that in writing because they want an opportunity to bid on it if that comes to fruition. So it's a fairly significant investment we need to make in that building. 100,000 will get the main level open, the lower level and the second level would still remain closed. And it would be in excess of 200,000 to get the whole building to where it needs to be. So yeah, we got a lot of thinking we need to do.
Mr. Commissioner, CPC's position had been that they only will approve funds that they only, excuse me, their precedent is that they only really go to approve expenditures out of the CPA funds at the annual town meeting. Does anyone know if they've changed that position and are willing to take a vote on an article at a special town meeting? Because I did think they had $75,000 for the library. Madam Administrator?
They did discuss this project as a group. They do not generally go to special town meetings asking for funding. I have requested nicely that they consider, because this is a lack of being able to offer a service, that they consider that when they make their decision not to go forward at the special. But they're pretty hard and fast sticking to that rule.
I understand. Is that a law? Is that a, does anyone know if that's a law? I understand that it's a precedent.
It's not a law.
The only reason is I feel like this is sort of an extraordinary circumstance, and they're all elected. So we have they're elected.
The CPC?
Yes.
No, they're
No.
Some of
appointed.
them are appointed, but they are like the planning board representative. Those people are elected.
Right.
The CPC. So if we want to maybe send them a letter and ask them if they want to or would be willing to do something at the special, it would really go a long way right now.
Mr. Chairman, this is Mr.
Sure.
Gale. Can I offer a comment?
Of course.
Okay, so what I want people to be aware of as well, and this may be something that I need to be involved in, or the commission needs to be involved in as well, in terms of the cost factors. And what I'm getting at is when you're spending money to make this building, usable again, there are specific formulas that have to be followed in terms of the value of the building, the value of the land versus the value of the reconstruction. And then it depends on what percentage of the building you're doing in order for this to be considered compliant. So, and the formulas can be fairly complex to work with. I've done them and I have that material, but again, they can be complex. I don't know if the town has thought of that yet, or simply so far just looked at what the potential cost to do the construction would be. But if the values are off, you can't do it. You would be told by the Commonwealth would come back at you and say, you did this and now you have to tear it down, or you have to redo it. And they are very serious about it. So I hate to throw a bump in the road, but that's a big bump that I think needs to be considered and needs to be looked at. I don't know if Mr. Aguirre has addressed that or looked at that yet or not.
No, we haven't, because everything that we plan to do will be ADA compliant. So there'll be no problems complying with the law.
I would still want to look at the values and the figures to make sure that it's compliant. So,
If everything is compliant, look, the engineer will be involved, engineering oversight will happen, the plan will be sent to your commission for approval. Everything that will be proposed will be ADA compliant.
when it is sent to, what would happen is when it's sent to the commission, we would be asking, at that point, we would be asking the questions that I'm asking now.
But it would
And
also
we're
be,
not-
I can jump in here. So the commission is more of a recommending body. The ADA commission, to be clear, is more of a recommending body, and it's not even off the ground right now. So it,
No, I know that, Mallory. I
like
just-
it's we're not going to get this in front of you
Yeah.
for right now. But
Okay.
we would also be hiring a third party, and they're beholden to all of those standards and rules, and those things are checked out. So just to, and we might be a little bit too much in the weeds on this matter here, but all of that is, oh my gosh, let me finish the sentence. We are very much embracing ADA compliance as an entire town. We've been singing it and trumpeting it. As soon as our community compact, the second one, because we finished stormwater, but the second one on open space plan is finalized and submitted, and we can apply for new ones, I intend to request that the Board of Selectmen name ADA compliance or eliminating barriers as one of our community compacts, so that we can continue this drive and going forward. I think we have all very strongly indicated that this is a priority for us. It bothers us when we see people struggle, and we want to fix it and do the right thing, because right is right, and that's what we do here. So I feel like there's a little tension, and I kind of want to break that up, but we're not going to go forward with any intent to redo work or any intent to skirt any necessary compliance rules.
No, and I just want to be clear, I'm I'm not suggesting that the town is, and I
No,
hope
I know.
everybody's aware
I'm
of
just
that.
making the
I just want to
statement
make,
that
okay, I just wanted to.
we're
get
going to be
everybody aware.
very, very forward
Correct.
thinking in our
And
compliance.
just to get us back on track, the only reason I even brought this up was broadly because what we're talking about is a large sum of money. So I feel like we should try to be resourceful about how we can make this possible, because I feel like we all agree that we need and want the library to be open. So I'd like to get back to focus on that. And that was the only reason I brought up the funding piece. I have done my part with the floor. Does anyone else want to add anything on this? Selectman Pacheco and then Selectman Goulart.
Sure. Jim, when you talked about a figure of approximately $100,000, is that also for the second egress on the main floor?
Yes, it is. It would be a completely independent egress that would be accessible. And the front of the building would be returned back to its original state with a stair and front foyer. So yes, it would address that.
Yeah. Okay.
So that's a
That was my
removal
question.
of the ramp completely.
I'm sorry, what was
Oh,
that?
Sorry, that's a removal of the ramp then completely.
That is correct. Because that's historic, that structure is historic, and it is a Carnegie building, I think that we would have to restore it as close to original as possible while conforming to the new regulations, both building, fire, and ADA compliancy, all of the above. So that's why the ramp would be proposed to be on the secondary egress, which quite frankly may become the main entrance because it would be closest to the parking lot.
Okay. Thank you.
Selectman Pacheco, did you have any other questions or comments about this?
Not at the moment, but Mrs. Goulart, I think, had
Yep,
question.
Selectman Goulart.
Yeah, Mr. Gale, when we discussed this, we meaning the Board of Selectmen and the trustees and the Council on Aging at previous meetings, I was the one who had asked what we could do to get the library open if all we had money to work on would be the first floor. And that's when Mr. Aguirre and Chief McGee talked about their major concerns about the building right now. So that's why the ramp and the bathroom facilities were all discussed, and we had asked Mr. Aguirre to get us some kind of a number on that. The whole point being, and I think it was, we had 100% consensus agreement that whatever money is spent on the library is going to add to the building, because assuming we'll get a new library, we're going to keep the Carnegie building. So we won't be wasting money. We will make it ADA compliant. And so this was all part of the discussion we had. And now what you're hearing now are the numbers are an estimate based on what we asked Mr. Aguirre to do. So I just want to put that out there. We're very conscious of the amount of money that we may have to spend, but it's not money that's going to be wasted.
Correct.
And I just,
Correct.
and I did participate in one discussion that was had a few weeks ago via Zoom, and it was almost impossible to participate because I couldn't really hear
Sure.
most of what was going on. So I missed a lot of that conversation. And I'm not suggesting that this is not plausible. I just want to get something out there that I don't want to, I don't want to see the town get bitten back in the future. I'm not saying this is not fully plausible. It very likely may be. I just wanted to get it on the radar. That's all. And I would have done that in that other meeting had I been able to be more participatory with, with the Zoom.
It's
Right. And I would just add that everything we discussed, as far as what Mr. Aguirre summarized tonight, is what the chief and he said to the board, that this is what has to be done in order to get that first floor open and to be able to allow the public to enjoy some services there. So I think we're headed in the right direction.
Sure. No, I totally agree. I guess my question for whoever wants to even be brave enough to try answering is, what are we gonna do? We have an idea of the ballpark cost. We know we have a special town meeting coming up in November. Are we just gonna write hope we have enough free cash for this? And I'm just throwing that out there. I asked about CPC. What are everyone's thoughts, Madam Administrator?
Throw me in the gauntlet.
But you usually have like a plan
Yeah.
A, B, C to all the way to Z. So
Well, I do have a sign that says that. I just found it in my office. Okay. So yes, first stop, I guess, is CPC. That's already been in the works, and that's why. I also am thinking if we're creative and clever and careful, we could potentially use some CARES Act funding for some of this, probably the bathroom, and whatever Mr. Aguirre has planned to create some more space, because that's specific to COVID. So we could kind of chop up the project in that way. And then of course there's free cash, there's raise and appropriate, there's other means, but we have kind of a reputation now, I think, that we creatively finance before we have to ask the public for more money through taxation. So I did have a very quick conversation with the town accountant. Well, I've had multiple conversations with him about revenues, and we're watching that, comparing them to last year, so we can get a better comfort level as we squeak into our special town meeting if you do vote to hold one. So when I get some more data back on that, I'll be able to, I've only done 1 month and I'd like to do more, obviously, for a more complete picture. We'll be able to kind of have more comfort levels in how we're going to have free cash. It's looking like maybe $1.5 million in free cash. Our revenues were pretty good. So it's not dire, but we certainly know that FY22 is going to be dicey. So
Correct.
we don't want to be.
We definitely, want to be mindful.
Want to be careful. Yeah.
Does anyone else have any thoughts? Yes, Selectman Goulart and then Selectman Pacheco.
It's funny that Mrs. Aaronstein mentioned that, because when we were talking, listening to Mr. Gale's report, I scribbled a note. Can CARES money be used for any ADA related project? So, and then the other thing I would add is we have capital stabilization also. So I think we have some funding sources. I agree, if there is a way that CPC can be used. And I'm trying to remember, didn't we use CPC money for, was it the Brook Street land?
Yes. And that was a special.
That was a special time. Was it a special? I'm trying to remember.
No, I think the first time was the special and it didn't pass at the first meeting. And then when it went to the annual, it did pass. I think that was the history on that.
And they mentioned that we generally don't do this at
That was part of
They said that, yeah.
That's why it was put. Yeah, it's hard to remember all the timing.
A lot of town meetings, yeah.
Okay.
Selectman Pacheco?
Yes, regarding the CPC, I don't think we're going to get anywhere for, having it at the fall meeting going for CPC funds. I've dealt with the CPC in the past for the Dayton Historical Society before I was a select person, and they would not have it at the special town meeting. We had to wait, and although we had completed our work, we had to wait until the annual town meeting. For example, they have the cutoff date to apply for CPC money is November 15th for next June.
Yeah.
So they want the paperwork in by November 15th, and then they're going to review it and have conversations with different folks and then decide whether or not they're going to recommend it. So I'm not optimistic that CPC funds are going to be available for us, at least for this immediate project. So whether it's stabilization funds or come out of free cash, I think we got to do something in November regarding the library so that we can open up that main floor.
I agree with you, Selectman Pacheco.
I agree.
Mr. Commissioner, not
Yeah.
putting you on the spot, but I know you, when we were talking at the beginning of the conversation, which feels like 4 years now, so I apologize. You had said that the bare bones, exactly what would be necessary and nothing more to get the library open was 75,000, correct? Around there, I'm ballparking. Something like that?
You are correct. That is correct.
Would it not be possible, and please shoot this idea down if it's not possible, to just do the bare bones at the special and wait to the annual to get the rest, to get 70, I think 5,000 more from CPC and maybe even more money from a special article to finish the rest of the work to total the 200,000? Would that not be possible?
So to answer your question directly, the two contractors I met with, the prices would range between 75 and 100 for what's been described tonight for the main level. So I think having a ceiling of 75 may not do it, but I certainly think 100,000 would. Now, to get to that point, though, we have to engage an engineering firm to take what the thoughts are, the code compliancy paths are, the needs of the library, the needs of the building, et cetera, and put it on two-dimensionally so that we can get a plan that will be approved, can be used for a permit, and then obviously put out to bid. So, you know, I don't know if all that will happen by the fall town meeting. Administrator Arenstein knows we tried to engage an engineer in the past recently, and that was very, very difficult. So we're conscious of the timeline, we're conscious of the need, but we need to be realistic in the timeline of when things can actually happen.
So is I guess what I'm hearing is that it might be more, in terms of the monies needed for this, is it looking more like the annual town meeting in June?
Or maybe we can split the project up into phases and try to get things moving after the fall town meeting so we don't lose 7 or 8 months. We could look at it that way.
That's kind of what my question was. Like, could we just start addressing after the fall town meeting the like what exactly would be needed, bare minimum, and then finish the rest of it at, you know, once we can get the rest of the funds at a future town meeting?
Yeah, I'm trying to think this through as we're talking, Mr. Chairman, and the egress is really the crutch that's holding up occupancy of that building. So, and unfortunately, that's one of the larger expenses. So I'm not sure how I would be able to phase this, because now we may end up with an accessible building, but we still have a non-accessible bathroom. And I haven't been able to rearrange the floor plan to spread things out, which doesn't do anything for our COVID issues. So it's a complicated problem, and it's going to take a complicated solution. But I certainly think we should try to do something at the upcoming town meeting. Maybe we just appropriate the funds for the engineering. I don't know. Just tossing that out there.
Selectman Goulart?
Mr. Aguirre, do you have any idea what an engineering firm would charge us to do this work?
I'd say between $3,000 and $5,000.
Okay, so if we were to go to the special town meeting with a warrant article for, let's say $105,000, if the article passes, we'll have the money available, and then the work can take place in stages, kind of like we did Old Town Hall.
Okay, yeah, I give it a try, right? I mean, what can we, look at the position we're in now. We have a building that can't be opened. So I say, what do we have to lose?
Well, I've just made a note of it, Selectman Goulart, so if we want to include that, and then ultimately the Board of Selectmen goes through all of the warrant articles, and you can kind of pick and choose which go on the warrant before it's published and all of that. So I'll just keep it as a placeholder, and nobody has to decide tonight, but
Well,
it's in the air.
I agree, but what it does sound like is, you know, $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 for engineering would be needed, and it sounds like $75,000 to $100,000 would be needed for the immediate work. So I think we should just start there, since those are the knowns. Is everyone in agreement on that?
Yes.
I am.
Okay. Good work. See, that was easy.
Dr. Z, it's almost like a sidewalk project. When we start the project, I'll use Miller's Lane as an example. We did it in stages, so to speak, and with the goal that it would be done before last winter set in, which happened, but it took a while. We got the money, we got the approval, but
Absolutely. Does anyone have any further questions, comments, concerns, or input they'd like to provide? Anyone from the library, for example? Mrs. Tavares, Mr. O'Connor?
My only question would be on placement of the library while any construction would be going on, I guess. That jumps out at me.
Mr. Commissioner, I believe that would be for you.
So initially, until the means of egress is installed, the building would have to remain closed to the public. So with the exception of maybe breaking through into the structure, the exterior work could be ongoing while the library was occupied by employees, as they're doing now. Once the egress is installed, and the fire chief and I can discuss whether or not that's enough to allow it to be open to the public. If so, we'd have to consolidate services into a smaller area, and that would allow the interior alterations to take place, which would ideally be the restrooms and maybe some reconfiguration of the floor plan. So it would definitely be a modified program, but logistically speaking, it could take place somewhat simultaneously.
Okay, thank you.
So it sounds like we know, oh, Mr. O'Connor, sir, you have the floor.
Thank you. And that's all I want to do here is thank you. Thank the Board of Selectmen.
We don't get that often. We're very confused by that.
And the town administrator for their untiring commitment to the future of the library. This is an important step to be taking. We have a long road to go, but again, this is refreshing and reassuring to see the level of support for the library as a community asset. So again, thank you all very much. And you have our partnership and support in getting this thing done. And my thanks to Jocelyn for her remarkable work during the past 6 months of the pandemic to keep the library going. So thank you.
Absolutely. And thank you. I want to thank the library staff for just hanging in there. I know it's not tough. You have some of the people are doing the curbside. Some of the people are actually at Old Town Hall. So I know it's not easy. Thank you for being patient and hanging in there while we try to get this issue resolved. I appreciate it. But it does sound like to me we're going to go for a warrant article, a special article for the special town meeting for this to get it started. So I think that sounds promising.
Yes.
I think it will have support because nobody wants to see any of our buildings shut down and services. Thank God we have good people. So services haven't really been affected, but certainly not an ideal situation. So thank you for everyone for putting your heads together on this. Before we move on to talk about the plugs and other things at Old Town Hall, did anyone else have any input specifically on the library?
Just that Lori Van Hook is my July big cheese. I didn't really get to advertise that too much, but for anybody who has seen I call it the Enchanted Forest. It's not called that, but that's what it is to me. I took Kevin there, at my youngest, and we had a blast strolling through. And I wanted to praise the library for their creative, out-of-the-box thinking in providing services with a building that cannot open, and having to deal with quarantining and all sorts of special conditions based upon a public health crisis. So I just wanted to recognize them. And Lori, congratulations. You probably don't even know, but you're the big cheese.
Yes, Mrs. Tavares.
I also, I did tell Lori, by the way.
Oh, good, thanks.
No, I just want to thank the staff, especially because they've been working their tails off, trying to make things work. And I'm just grateful to have the team that we have at the library. And I wanted to share that. Well, I had the
Spotlight.
so I just wanted to really share that with.
Thank you. We
Thank
appreciate
you.
you. Hearing no further comments under this, I do want to thank the library trustees for joining us for this conversation. I definitely think it's been promising. We'll put a placeholder in, I assume, Madam Administrator, for a special article for the special town meeting for this.
It's already written down.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone. And you can stay. We like the company. So now we're going to begin our discussion on the plans and pricing for the renovations at Old Town Hall, and then also touch upon the plugs that will be needed for the Selectmen stage area at Old Town Hall. Mr. Commissioner?
Sure, thank you. If you don't mind, I'd like to do them in reverse.
However you want.
The plugs that are required at Old Town Hall are specifically for your meetings and the use of electronic devices, which seems to be getting more and more prevalent. It's good to see. And I thought that, well, it's been discussed that plugs are needed. What I came up with for our plan is, instead of putting the plugs under the tables, where everyone would expect them to be, and drilling holes in the table and then running your cord down through the table, I just think that would be cumbersome. A more convenient solution, I thought, was to bring the plugs up to the table level right in front of you and use our talented employee, Michael Barabee, to create a period correct wooden box and have it duplicate as a place for the nameplates for whichever committee is using that room or board. So I just like your opinion on that. Whether or not you want to spend the time, it's more time than money. It is going to cost something, obviously, because we have to get the town electrician involved. But you know, similar to what he's done with the conference room and the lower level of town hall, the light fixtures, et cetera, I know that we can come up with something that would look really nice, and there would be a duplex outlet hidden in the back of it for everyone to use. And then it would be a convenient way to change out the nameplates depending on who's using the room.
So I am not a visual person, and I apologize. But what it sounds like to me is that, and I've seen this before, the boxes would be on the table. So I actually think that that's kind of a common design now, especially in the age of like Zoom meetings. So I think I'm totally fine with that. I would actually prefer that than them being on the floor, to be honest.
Yeah, and my idea was to do a combination outlet and USB plug, so that, you know, it would be with the sign of the times, yet it would be housed in an old piece of wood that would be repurposed, that Mike would put his flair on under my direction. And I think it would be a functional part of the infrastructure that would be aesthetically pleasing.
Did Selectman Goulart or Selectman Pacheco? Selectman Pacheco?
Yes, I have a question then. So are these going to go on the desk, Jim?
Yeah, they'll be permanently mounted to the tops of the tables, yes.
So right now, because of social distancing, we can fit 3 each on a table, but hopefully in the future, we're going to be able to go back to where we were before, 3 select people sitting in the middle. And so there'd be enough outlets for everybody, say 5 members, 6 members?
I actually was going to do more than that. The 2 side tables, I was going to put 2 each on, so that'd be a total of 4, and then it would be the 3 for the selectmen's table. So there would be go ahead.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Wow.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I was thinking that we would somewhat go to some sense of normalcy someday, so yes.
Yeah. Thank you.
I think it's a good idea. Mr. Commissioner, you know how if you have like a, I don't know, laptop, sometimes the cord doesn't always stretch long enough to like plug in behind you on the ground. So I'm really happy that you have this idea. And thank Mr. Barabee as well for his expertise to make it all happen.
I ran it by him today and he's up for the challenge, so we're okay.
He's a good man and a brave man.
He is.
I just have one question. So if there were going to be a presentation like we used to have in normal times, where somebody has a computer and they're using the back wall as a screen, these boxes would provide power for that, but they would be low enough so that they wouldn't interfere with a presentation on the back wall.
Yeah, maybe a box was the wrong term to use. These would be very small, maybe just a few inches tall, just large enough to house a receptacle and the USB port. So yeah, it wouldn't be large and obtrusive, and you certainly wouldn't see it sitting at the table. Your laptop would be probably 2 or 3 times the height of what these are going to be.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
I think it sounds great. Thank you.
You're welcome. So I guess the question is, with the new spending limits that were put in place, I'm not sure that this will exceed the $1,500. It was tough to get the electrician to give me a solid number because of the whole snaking of wires, et cetera. But I'm not sure that we need to appropriate funds for this. Would that be an accurate statement?
Yes. Sorry, yes, I think that's accurate. We have, if this is specifically because if it's COVID related, it's CARES Act. If not, we have money in our public buildings account. So I don't think you need a specific appropriation.
But Mr. Commissioner, are you asking because you don't have the exact price, it may be over 1,500? Are you requesting a vote from us?
No, I don't know that it will be over 1,500, but if it is, I don't think it'll exceed by very much. But I couldn't get the electrician to give me a hard number. I did look at some of his other work that he's done recently, and it was right around $1,400 for what I would think would be similar. But I'm looking for a little guidance because with this spending freeze, I certainly am careful about everything we spend, but I don't want to not be able to do a project or do something incorrectly if it goes over by a couple $100.
I agree with Mrs. Aaronstein.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm okay with that as well, Mr. Commissioner.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, no worries. Thank you for thinking outside the box, pun intended. Okay. Town hall renovations. I know everyone's eager to get those going. Obviously, I in this type of a meeting format, I typically like to show everyone what my thoughts are on paper. And I know I could do that here, but I'm a little ill prepared. So what I'd like to do is just get some feedback from you tonight so that I can put something together for your next meeting. And I think the timing will be appropriate because as you know, we have the auction going on right now. So that should end just about the time of your next meeting. So that'll free up my time to focus, somewhat solely on getting that project up and running. So if I may, my question, or just to recap quickly, we know that we're going to work on just the main level or the upper level of town hall because the funding that was appropriated was, I believe, to the tune of $75,000. So that won't do the entire project, but I think it will take care of most, if not all, of the upstairs needs at town hall. That said, the first thing I need to do to get started is to repurpose the space that you thankfully vacated to give us the real estate we need, as I said earlier, to move an office into it so that I can spread out the other offices. So without going into detail about who's going to use that space, before I do the plans, I wanted the selectmen's opine on repurposing your old selectmen chambers into one office that could be used by, I think, narrowed it down to the town administrator or the town accountant, and then what I'm calling a neutral office or an office for boards, committees, members who don't have a permanent office in town hall to use to meet,
and give them file cabinet space in that room that they can lock up so that they can save or place files in that room. May or may not have a computer in it, I don't know, we can discuss that. But if that's what the selectmen are envisioning, or at least through my eyes can envision, that's what I'd like to do with that space.
Are you saying it would be an office space for either the town accountant or the town administrator, but the files would be in there from other committees?
No, I'm not saying that. I'm going to create 2 rooms in that space. I'm sorry, I wasn't clear enough. I'm going to divide that space up to create 2 separate areas because it's large enough to do that. So we would have a small neutral office area that can be used by anyone. And then we would have a separate office that would encompass probably 3/4 of that room, 2/3 to 3/4, that can be used by what I think is either the town administrator or the town accountant.
That's fine with me. I mean, I'm going to be honest. I didn't have a preference on who went. What? Excuse me. Let me back up. I didn't have a preference on what office particularly was relocated to where. So when this was brought to us, it was explained as something is going to go there because the space is needed, and we voted to give up or relinquish. I don't know what the word is. The
I
selectmen.
think we were evicted.
Yes, we were probably evicted. I was being generous. And so I guess what I'm saying, Mr. Commissioner, is I really will leave it up to you and working with the other departments to make sure that the space is appropriate and fits the needs of whoever will go in there. But I'm really
Okay.
not being ideological on what office is going to go where. I'm really not.
Okay. Okay.
So
So I guess more specifically is I want the selectmen's opine on the neutral office, because I think that space is too large for one office. Albeit whoever uses it, because with background, the clerk and the collector are going to stay in that section of the building. The clerk is going to move down, or at least in my opinion, move down to where the accountant is, because the vault will be in a central location between the clerk and the collector treasurer.
Sure.
So with that in mind, with the other offices that are left to find space, that would be the town administrator and the town accountant.
Yes.
That your old chambers is much too large for just one office. So that's why there's been a discussion in the past about a need for a small office space or a meeting area for outside boards and committees. So
Yes.
I guess more specifically, I'm asking if the selectmen would agree, and if so, then I'll render it two-dimensionally, show it to you, and then we'll get started probably shortly after your next meeting.
I was avoiding your question. I apologize. No,
That's okay.
Mr. Commissioner, I think that sounds like my personal opinion, and I want to go to Selectman Pacheco because I know you have a comment or a question. I'm fine with it. We've gotten that, I won't say complaint, but we've gotten that suggestion from other boards for quite a while about wanting to have a space where they can go and it's quiet. Hopefully, if it's an office, I would assume they will have some sort of access to a computer, possibly like a printer of some sort, so that people are not having to use their own resources to do town work for different committees that we've entrusted them to do work on. I guess that's my position on that. Selectman Pacheco?
Yeah, that's similar to my position. There definitely has to be room for a computer and maybe a printer. There has to be room enough for 2 or 3 people to be in that room. Maybe it's 1/3 of that office the way it is right now, and 2/3 for the town administrator or the I can't think of the name of it.
Accountant.
Our accountant, yes, our town accountant. And also, like, for example, I'm not a member of the Historic Commission anymore, but they have a file cabinet downstairs in the cable room that needs to be moved. Would there be enough room in this area, this neutral area, to put a few file cabinets?
Yes. So my plan specifically is if you remember that space, there's 2 large closets in there, and the closet is the perfect location to put file cabinets in, because it's outside of the footprint of the room, but it's still in the room and accessible. Now, that doesn't mean there'll be doors there. The doors may be removed, but that
Right.
that alcove is the perfect location for multiple file cabinets. So the answer would be yes. That would certainly take up or fit that need. As far as a print is concerned, just so my plan was to network all the computers so that they would be able to print off the main copy that we have. In doing the renovations, I'm also going to create a separate copy room outside of where it is now. And my thought is to put it where Sue's area is now, which I think is a better location. So the answer would be yes, they would have access to that.
I felt like I was going to ask you a question, but it was going to be too in the weeds, so I'm going to spare you.
Okay.
I know Jonathan's on the call, but this fits into our ADA picture because he had also been looking for some space to conduct some business and meetings with people who might need some services. So I love the idea of that neutral zone.
Me too.
And I would agree. I think it's important for not only what's done with an ADA coordinator, but there are other committees who want to be able to meet with people one-on-one, sometimes in person. And it gives us all the opportunity to do that.
I agree.
I got a question. Mr. Aguirre, in dividing up the meeting room, are you going to put a wall all the way to the ceiling?
I haven't decided yet, Selectman Goulart. I may not. I don't want that smaller space to feel claustrophobic. So having the higher ceilings may actually give it the impression or the feeling that it's much bigger than it is. So I haven't really decided. If I did not go all the way to the ceiling, then I framed a false ceiling in that new area, then I would probably use the area above that room for some storage, if it was practical. So the answer directly is I haven't decided yet.
My thought is that whoever ends up in not the neutral room, but I'll call it the office space. That is one dark room. I don't care what you do to it. It's almost like an interior room. It's extremely dark. And we may have to do something about lighting in there. Just keep that in mind, because the natural light that comes in doesn't really come in from a good wall. You know what I mean? It's just got those small windows.
Right. Yeah, I'm aware of that. So I planned on using some creative light fixtures with the right lumens and color to make it both inviting, and I don't want anybody to feel like they're in a dungeon. That's certainly not the intent.
Yeah. No, I think the neutral room's a good idea. I guess my main concern is that we address all the space issues on the first floor. Certainly the town clerk and her assistant, and that meeting room, former meeting room, selectmen's meeting room, because of the way it's part of the original building, I would hate to see something put in there that would forever change that meeting room. I don't know if it's a historical thing or not, but certainly space can be made available for functions that, if in fact the day ever came that the Board of Selectmen could have the meeting room as a meeting room because something else opened up or improved or whatever, I would like to think that down the road that option might be there for a future administration.
Yeah, absolutely. Not that I make anything to come apart, but because of the configuration of that room, the partitions that would be required to make a neutral office could easily be removed down the road. We would use screws and not nails. So yeah, it's very possible.
Did anyone have any questions about that particular neutral office space that the building commissioner touched upon?
I do.
Sure.
Sure. If the town administrator is going into that new space, I think she's gonna need the privacy, so I think the wall for the neutral space has to go to the ceiling, because she has some confidential meetings with people, union members, grievances and stuff like that in her office, so I think that the wall would probably have to go to the ceiling to give her, if she's the one that's going into that room, some privacy.
Right, that's a good point, and from a visual perspective, one-on-one, but that has been taken into account. That wall is going to actually be soundproofed, and if the wall didn't go all the way to the ceiling, which quite frankly, for argument's sake, I'm leaning towards that just because I don't want that neutral room to feel like a dungeon. But if it didn't, it would have a hard ceiling in it that would also be insulated. So it would be a completely separate space. But I agree with you. I think I'm leaning towards the wall going all the way to the ceiling. And as I said, it'll be soundproofed.
Can I
Thank
give
you.
my and I don't, like I said, I'm not, like, I don't have strong opinions, but just in terms of the logistics, it would make more sense to move the accountant, only because you would have to move the accountant if the clerk's office goes to that space. You wouldn't necessarily have to move the town administrator. So just from a logistical, like not having to move or having to move the least amount of departments as possible, it might make more sense to have that space be for the accountant.
No, I'm glad you said that, because those were my thoughts too. And
because you would have to help move.
Right. And I'm so tired of moving already.
I bet.
But no, thank you for bringing that up, and I'll discuss it at the appropriate time. But yeah, I think logistically, because of the location, I think the accountant, town administrator, and the administrator's assistants all would work seamlessly in the same side of the building. So I think having the accountant there would work just as well as having the administrator there. So I would have to agree. Plus, going back to Selectman Pacheco's point, I would do my best to soundproof that wall, but it certainly would make more sense to have the town administrator stay in my old office, which I loved, by the way.
Jim, this is Jonathan. I just have a quick question. For the two doors, only the two doors I'm focusing on, excuse me, I don't remember exactly what, off the top of my head, the recommendation was or wasn't in the report we just got. But I do think that they suggested that either door is not wide enough right now for a wheelchair. My only question is that something we have to contend with, or structurally can one of the doors be made wider, depending upon where you choose to make that second space?
Yeah. So I was going to bring this up when the selectmen had a plan in front of them, and I don't know how much we wanted to get into this now. I was actually not going to put a door on the neutral office area. Now, that may or may not hold water, because there may be some boards who want privacy and they do want a door. But yes, I did read the report. I do know that those doors are a problem, so that the door would be addressed, either eliminated or it would have to be reconfigured.
Okay, I just didn't know structurally it could be reconfigured. Thank you.
Mr. Commissioner, not to belabor this, but I actually really feel strongly in agreement with you about the no doors on the neutral office. And that's just because if we're going to have like I know the files would potentially be secure, right? If there is, I'll just use this as an example. If there are parks and recreation stuff in there, I would assume they would have their own drawer and they would have their own key. It would still make me feel more comfortable to not have a door though, because you are having so many, theoretically, you would have people coming and going at different times and using the room for different reasons for different committees. So I feel strongly that it shouldn't have a door as well. I don't know your reasons for it, but I'm with it. I like it.
That was the exact reason, and because it's that type of an office, I just didn't think a door was necessary. So, okay, great, thank you.
Dr. Z?
Yes, Selectman, I know you had input.
I agree with what you said as far as the town accountant going into the old selectmen's meeting room. quite frankly, personal opinion, I think the nicest office is the one the town administrators got because
Oh,
it's
yeah.
bright, it's sunny, it's spacious.
The window.
The,
I know.
Rosie,
Window.
sorry,
Who
Jim.
remembers the window?
but I do have one question.
Sure.
If the copy room goes, I'll say where the town clerk's desk is right now, that area. Are you going to be able to have like a little break room in
So,
where the
So-
copier is? Because we
yeah,
talked
so
about
my,
that.
so my plan was to move the copier and the mail boxes into the area that would be vacated by the town clerk, which would also have a door to the hallway, which makes great sense. And then the current entire copier room, mail room, would be turned into a break room for the employees with a sink, running water, and a place to wash their dishes.
Oh, that's great because it abuts the restroom and the water and that supplies plumbing would be right there. I would
Exactly.
think. Oh, that I like that idea because I know we talked about that.
Thank you.
Well, I think it sounds like a great plan. I know you wanted to get our thoughts before you put it on paper. So if you're looking for my blessing, you certainly have it. I think it sounds like a really good plan and is well thought out.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Yeah, that's important. Thank you.
Team,
Thank you.
are you, Selectman Goulart and Selectman Pacheco, are you comfortable with the building commissioner, our facilities manager, pursuing sort of, getting in writing or whatever, drawing the plan that he's discussed and presented here this evening?
Yeah, I'd like to see a drawing, a floor plan, whatever you call it.
And I also would like to see a floor plan. I do think that the board needs to seriously think about not replacing the carpet, but maybe putting a floating floor, the vinyl flooring versus carpeting, given the whole COVID-19 and how germs can stay in the carpet. We might seriously want to think about not putting carpet in the rooms and putting a floating floor, similar to what they have in the old town hall in the basement or on the first floor.
So I guess my personal opinion was, I know, Mr. Commissioner, I always say, replace the carpet. When I say that, I just assume that we want to replace the carpet. I really do not have a firm ideology on, do we need to have a carpet or not? Personally, I like vinyl flooring or actual wood flooring. I know we can't do actual wood. So if what Selectman Pacheco is talking about is feasible and makes sense, then I think we should explore it. I'm by no means relegated to wanting a carpet.
Okay.
If we can do something else, that's fine too. So that's my
Sure. So what I'd like to do at your next meeting is to present this two-dimensionally to you, and then that can start, obviously the work will start. So at that point, we need to make decisions about exactly what you're discussing. So I think at the next meeting, we can get into more detail about what we want for fit and finish, and then roll with it from that. I don't have a preference either way. I can tell you in my office, I would like carpet. That's just me. But the carpet today is carpet tiles. It's not the carpet that you think of on a roll. Old Town Hall is carpet tiles. They very resilient. But Selectman Pacheco brings up a good point. So maybe the answer is a hybrid. Maybe the answer is all vinyl. But yeah, we can do something. Okay.
Sounds good, Mr. Commissioner.
The other thing we have to think about is just not that room. We had talked about replacing the carpet in the town hall first floor because we think it's original. So whatever, I don't know if we want patchwork flooring or if we want to figure out how that whole first floor is going to have the same floor. I don't know. I can also tell you this, that I understand what Selectman Pacheco said about covert and germs, but I can also tell you there's a problem with any kind of seamed flooring, and that includes whether it's regular wood or anything else, simply because there are seams, there are splits in the wood, there are openings in there. And not only is that a problem for dirt and germs and whatever else you can think of, but if you get something in there, it's difficult to clean. I'll call them the seams between the boards, if you know what I
Yep.
mean.
Yep.
So whether it's shampooing, carpeting, or whatever, but I think we got to come up with a uniform solution to covering the floor, first floor of town hall, so it's all the same.
Okay. Sounds good.
You're muted.
I'm sorry. I'll do it always once at least, every meeting. So you will, I know that's kind of, we're getting into the specifics. You would gather all your ideas on how you want to proceed more with the specifics at a future meeting when we have a more concrete plan. So,
Yes.
Okay.
And this is going to be phased because obviously we need to keep town services running while this is happening. So I anticipate this discussion will be ongoing through the process. Maybe not every meeting, but we will bring this up, during several of your next ongoing meetings so that we can iron out all the details.
that sounds good to me. Mr. Commissioner, did you have anything else you wanted to add under this agenda item? The renovation?
No, sir.
at
No,
Town Hall?
thank you.
Okay. Does anyone else have anything else under this item?
No.
Okay. If I may make a suggestion, can we move out of order to new business 9C, act on the fire chief's recommendation, and then I would like us to move to 9A, act on the building commissioner's recommendation, just because it's already 8 p.m.
Jim is also here for discretionary spending, just so you know. It's not specifically listed. Okay.
Is the
Yeah.
fire chief here for that, or is he only here for 9C?
Mr. Chairman, I was here for also the Sweets Knoll.
Okay. Now, is it okay with everyone if we go out of order for those two items?
Yeah, I'll make a motion to take items, would you say them again?
Yep, 9C, act on the
9C.
fire chief's recommendation to declare surplus, and also correspondence B, discuss concerns at Sweet Snow Park, State Park.
Yes, all right, so it's 9C and 11B out of order.
I'll second that motion.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? The ayes have it, and that motion passes. And Chief, thank you as always for being patient.
Anytime.
Bear with me just a moment, I'm scrolling. I know we have a list here. So I know we had a couple items on here for the fire department. It is
Page 9 if you're looking for it.
just car 4, right?
Yes.
Okay. So it's a 2003 Ford Crown Victoria that you're requesting to be made surplus or accepted as surplus. Does anyone have any questions, comments, or concerns, or are we prepared to make a motion? I'll accept.
I'll make a motion. Yeah, I'll make a motion that we declare the 2003 Ford Crown Victoria, formerly Car 4, as surplus.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Chief, is the electric car here yet?
The electric car is here, yes.
Oh, we can see it? Okay.
Yeah, it's not leaded or anything yet, so
Very nice. Very nice. And the ladder truck.
the ladder truck is being outfitted as we speak, and hopefully will go into service early next week.
That's awesome. Congratulations and good work on that, Chief.
Thank you.
If there's no further discussion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? The ayes have it, and that motion passes. We did receive a, I don't know if either the town administrator or if someone else wants to summarize the complaint we received by someone, a resident who abuts Sweet Knolls Park. I guess I'll just summarize, if you want, Madam Administrator, what the Board of Health sent us.
Mr.
Well, actually,
Chairman, one question.
Sure.
On the list of surplus, there are 2 generators. What department wants us to vote on those? They're both pending.
I have to scroll, so give me a second.
Not mine,
They're not yours?
building
not
committee.
mine.
Building, I think that is.
Okay.
Yeah, that'll come under my recommendation, Selectman Goulart.
Okay, all right, thank you.
I'm gonna motion we move to those after, Mr. Commissioner, right after this.
I'm here for the night. You do whatever you need to do. Thank you, though.
You're welcome. So we did receive a complaint from an abutter who's abuts the Sweet Knoll State Park, and it went to the Board of Health and to one of our selectmen, and it did come to us from the Board of Health with kind of a summary of the problems and then also some recommendations on what they'd like us to do and what state departments they'd like us to contact to help rectify some of these issues. So Selectman Goulart, I know you're intimately, they had reached out to you as a selectman regarding this issue, so I think it's appropriate if you'd like to present this.
Okay, so just a little history. I did receive an email from a resident who abuts the park. Excuse me, and she's had a number of, her family, they've had a number of problems. The first thing she mentioned was the fact that the grass, it's not grass like a lawn, it's kind of overgrown, whatever, has not been mowed for the past couple of years. And as a result, she's had a problem with mice. And from what she described, I think it's the little mice that live out there in the tall grass, and in the winter, they look for a place to come inside. And then there were also problems relative to people using the park at all hours of the night, and people who have actually trespassed on her property. And she wanted to know if the town of Dayton could take action. She also had concerns about, she was told there was going to be a big parking lot built. So I responded to her and suggested that I would refer the complaints about the grass and the mice to the Board of Health, and that we would also be discussing what should be done relative to notification or making the state Parks Commission, Recreation Department, whatever, aware that the park it seems to be attracting people all hours of the day and night. And we know state parks have hours of operation, to see if something could be done there. And so the Board of Health, they did send out, they did do an inspection, and as you know, we have correspondence back from the Board of Health relative to the parking lot. That came up at the stormwater meeting. No one is aware of any size parking lot that is planned to be built or anything else. And it was pointed out that should a large parking lot be proposed, initially somebody said, well, the town can't do anything because it's the state. Well, certainly if the area of disturbance for a parking lot is 35,000 square feet or more, they would have to come before the Stormwater Committee. So as of now, nobody at the Stormwater Committee was aware of any kind of a big parking lot project or anything else. So, so I'll send it back to you because I know that there was some correspondence from the Board of Health that came in, and Mrs. Aaronstein might have gotten it.
Yes. So you actually summarized everything, Selectman Goulart. The only thing, so they did make some, and I'll just read them as they came on the memorandum. They made some specific recommendations that they would like us to contact DCR with these recommendations, even though they've also reached out. So one, a fence should be installed on the property line between the two properties. So between the Sweet Knoll State Park and the abutter. Signs should be posted indicating hours of opening and closing as well as no littering signs. They did have a trash issue. I know that it states that they did install a trash receptacle and they're hoping that that makes an impact, but they would like some no littering signs. And a lockable access gate should be installed to prevent off-hours visitation, which Selectman Goulart mentioned. And lastly, as she also mentioned, was the mowing. The grass field to the east of the abutter's property should be mowed to reduce the risk of a potential fire and remediate the rodent problem that has been reported. So those are the recommendations. Before I accept any motions, or I did want to ask Chief McGee, and then I want to ask my colleagues for input as well. Did you have anything that you wanted to add to this issue?
So I did. I had the email forwarded to me, I believe, from Selectman Goulart. And I read it over last week, and I made a phone call to Aaron Whidden, who's actually the District 3 Fire Warden from the Bureau of Forest Fire Control, who falls under the Department of Conservation and Recreation out of Freetown State Forest. And we spoke basically just about the field in the back and the vegetation and the growth. And we both agreed that the consistency of that vegetation isn't significant or the right vegetation for a concern for flame spread if there was to have a fire breakout in the field, let's say. It's very green. It's not the type of vegetation that would be consistent with a rapid spread of fire. He's not going to take a stance on saying that he's going to require them to mow it down because of a fire concern. Nor would I, because I think for this town, if we started a precedent like that, we have a lot of, I'll call it residential areas that have hay fields, maybe in the back of their properties that if we start doing this, where do we call it enough is enough, you know? I don't want to have to go tell somebody who's growing hay for a profit that they need to cut their hay because there's a fire concern. So I don't think there's a concern there. He said that he had dealt with this in the past, 3, 4, 5 years ago. And basically DCR just came out and mowed it and whatever. So maybe a phone call to DCR. He gave me a name of a gentleman by the name, I think it was Carl Pastori. I think I still have his phone number here at my house, who's the region director out of Miles Standish. And he might be able to help you with getting some mowing done.
Thank you very much, Chief. We appreciate
Sure.
that. Does anybody else have any questions, comments? Selectman Pacheco, sir.
Yes, I noticed that the Board of Health has sent a letter to DCR regarding the mowing of the grass, but the other items have not been addressed. So I think the board needs to send a letter to DCR regarding the fence, the signage, a lockable gate, and also add to it that we would like to have the field mowed. But I think we need to address this.
Oh, no, I totally agree. I was just thinking. So is the board amenable to sending a letter as the Board of Health did on these key issues?
I think it's a good idea.
I am.
Madam Administrator, I'm okay with the letter. Are there any other ways we could also do this in addition to like a formal letter? Because I feel like sometimes when we write formal letters, and again, I support it, and I'm gonna vote yes for a letter, but I feel like sometimes they just like fall on deaf ears. Is there anything else we can do
They
too?
go in a pile, right? So I'm fine with us drafting a letter and sending that in. In addition to that, I would recommend that maybe we connect Mrs. Gendro with Rep. Haddad. Every state agency and office has a legislative liaison. And so Rep. Haddad would have access to whomever that legislative liaison was for DCR. And then that's basic, it's not a caseworker, but that's what they do. They focus on that one problem or issue, and then that's your contact and point of contact. So I would suggest us being kind of a connector for those two groups, and then Mrs. Gendro can work directly with DCR through Rep. Haddad's office to accomplish some more of these things. I
I'm
think
okay with doing both.
as their neighbors. I mean, she should be able to have a contact with them. It's her neighbor, right? Wouldn't you want your neighbor's number? So
I'm okay with doing both, and I also would like to take the chief up on, it sounds like he has his own contact there regarding the mowing. That might be the best way to go on that. Like I said, we'll write the letter specific to all 4 points that the Board of Health outlined. But I think we could also do the other things we've outlined too, in addition. And the worst that happens is it still doesn't get mowed, and it's, it stays the way it is. Selectman Goulart?
Thanks, Chief. I copied the chief on it because in the email, there were so many different concerns, and one of them was the drought in the grass. So that's, I'm glad the chief followed up on that. The other thing I did assure Mrs. Gendro was that if there is an application for a parking lot that would be coming before the Stormwater Committee, she would be notified, because we would hold a hearing so that people living abutters could come and participate if they chose. So I also gave her that assurance.
Thank you, Selectman Goulart. And so I will entertain motions. Is everyone okay with the other? So it sounds like we're all on board with the letter where we stipulate the 4 points that are highlighted in the memorandum from the Board of Health. But is everyone also okay with Chief or Madam Administrator can contact the fire chief's contact at DCR regarding the mowing, and also connect Mrs. Gendrew with Pat Haddad's office, Representative Haddad's office? We'll do all
I'm in agreement with that.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea to do all of those things.
Awesome. See, we put our heads together. So I will entertain motions relative to the letter that the board has been requested to send to DCR.
Mr. Chairman, I move that the Board of Selectmen send a letter to DCR requesting that the grass in the Sweet Snow State Park be mowed. And do you want separate motions on everything?
Sure, that's fine. Or one big motion, that's fine. It's all we're all hopefully having the same goal.
So, all right, so Mrs. Brady, did you get that about the letter? Okay, the next part is, and that Mrs. Aaronstein contact, what's the gentleman's name, Chief?
Carl Pastori.
Okay, that the town administrator contact Mr. Pastori relative to the mowing, and that the town administrator get in touch with Mrs. Gendro and suggest to her that she contact a Rep Haddad's office for assistant with a liaison to DCR.
You want to repeat that motion? No, I'm joking. I'll second that motion. I'll second that motion.
Brady.
so we hit rewind. We just
Yeah.
hit rewind. Yeah.
I'll look at it, Karen.
Did you second, Selectman Pacheco? I'm sorry.
Yes, I did. Yes,
Okay.
I did.
So we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? The ayes have it, and that motion passes. Chief, you can stay with us if you'd like. You are by no means obligated. Thank you very much. We always appreciate
Anytime.
your expertise.
Glad I can help.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Chief.
No problem.
Chief, I have a request.
Okay.
When the electric car is all lettered and fancy, and when the ladder truck is all ready, let us know so we can each drop by and take a look.
Will do.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you. So, Mr. Chairman, what was the next item we were going to take out of order?
9A.
Yeah, but we need to do the discretionary spending request because I think the building
Okay.
committee has one anyway. So if we could do
Yeah.
that, and then we'll go
Yeah,
to
okay.
9A. So discretionary spending requests. So we did receive something. It was a little hard for me to read on the iPad. Madam Administrator or
Sure.
Mr. Commissioner, did you want to present this request form?
I can do it real quick, Jim, if you don't mind.
Go for it.
We have to prep for this house removal, either it being on auction and successfully being sold. This is, I'm sorry for the public, 949 Somerset Avenue. The house, just to be clear, it is not the land, it is the house, and the structure only is going up for auction as part of our annual auction. And we have to prep for that. These costs would be relevant if the house doesn't sell or if the house does sell. So we have to do this regardless. So Jim and I together, we are asking for the board's vote to allow us to go forward with shutting off utilities, like kind of capping everything. And then we have to make sure it doesn't have asbestos and do the remediation there. Jim, did I miss anything?
Nope, the only thing that I would caution you on is this appropriation or allowance does not include remediation. We won't know what remediation is until we get it tested.
In there, right? So exploring if we need to.
Right.
So this is just to discover if there's an asbestos issue?
Yes.
Okay. And again, it sounds like it's something that's required, so not.
Well, we also, oh, I'm sorry.
We do this on every building that's demolished, and in this particular case where it could potentially be moved, we also have an obligation to make sure that asbestos doesn't leave one location and move to another.
Sure.
I was just going to mention that so the motion at special town meeting to demolish this building was made in such a way that it went into the line in the budget, in the operating budget. So we encumbered those funds because we're just waiting out this demolition delay and the auction and everything that has gone with this house. So the funds used for this, if I'm not mistaken, are going to be from that encumbered amount.
That is correct.
Mr. Chairman, are you accepting motions?
Absolutely, I'm sorry. I was looking at the document.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we authorize the building commissioner and the town administrator, if her involvement is needed, to shut off utilities at 949 Somerset Avenue, to check for a septic system and take appropriate action if one is found, and to have the property inspected for asbestos.
I'll second that motion.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? The ayes have it, and that motion passes.
Thank you.
Next, oh, you're welcome. Thank you, Mr. Commissioner.
I have one more. I'm sorry. You don't have documentation for this because it's more of like to get a feel from what you're talking about.
Sure.
Jim and I have bandied about to, this is for a while now, but to start looking for a part-time inspector. And we're talking about a per diem rate. I would actually prefer a part-time rate, but we kind of want to get a flavor from the board if you're okay with us going forward with this in this time. Obviously, with all the facilities and management and building projects and green communities grants and logistical moves and things that are going on with the building department right now, we could use some assistance for inspections. So that's the basis for why we're kind of seeking this out. It's budgeted. It's been budgeted for, Jim, I'm sorry, I can't remember how many years you told me, but I think it's like 4.
4 years, correct.
Okay.
Yeah, since I've been here, that's definitely been there.
So we want to move forward with it.
Where is this on this agenda?
It's just under discretionary spending request.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I thought this was 9A, and I was like, how is this surplus?
So we want to go forward with a posting. We want to throw out some salaries.
Sure.
So people can have an expectation. It's more than $1,500. So.
Well, yes.
For the year.
So, I mean, I don't have any figure. I'll just give my opinion, and then I want to hear my colleagues. I don't have any figures in front of me, so I don't know what we're actually talking about. So what I'm going to focus my remarks on are just what we have going on in town. We have a library that's closed. We have a council on aging that is closed, not because of the building, but just because of the nature of the program. We have renovations at town hall. We're asking the building commissioner to do some other things at Old Town Hall, such as ADA compliance, putting in a ramp. We're asking him to install electrical plugs at in the selectmen's room. For me personally, again, not having any figures, so I can't come to a final judgment. But what I would like to see is, again, the building commissioner is the department head. And it would be nice if he just had an assistant who he could delegate certain, smaller project. And I would leave that up to him, obviously. But it might be nice for him to have an extra set of eyes and also an extra set of hands in delegating and juggling, really, all of these facilities projects. I'll also remind everyone that our building commissioner, thanks to our building commissioner, he's taken the lead on the, and I know it's sort of stalled right now for reasons that are not his, but the campus reconfiguration parking lot issue at the middle school. So that's also something that is a ball in the air that's being juggled. And I think we need to be mindful of that. So those are my comments on that.
Mr. Chairman, I'm willing to make a motion
Sure.
that we authorize the building commissioner and town administrator to put together a brief job description and cost estimate for a part-time building inspector.
Assistant building inspector, right?
Correct.
The title.
Yeah,
Just making sure, 'cause,
Part-time.
it has to be
local inspector.
What are we gonna
Part-time.
call it?
A
Part-time,
local inspector.
part-time local inspector.
but do we have to say building? He's not gonna do plumbing and electrical.
No, the term is in the building code. The town administrator is correct. It's actually part-time local building inspector. So that's accurate, Selectman Goulart.
Local building inspector.
Yeah, building is in the word.
Right,
That's what was
right,
confusing. Okay.
Right.
I'll second that motion.
We have a motion and a second. Under discussion, I just wanted to say, I would assume that the town administrator and the building commissioner had a discussion about this before it came to us tonight. I'm always sensitive to encroaching. I know our building commissioner takes pride in his work and works hard. So I just wanted to make sure before we took a vote that this was something the building commissioner also felt was worthwhile as well.
Yes, so I'll just give you a quick synopsis. This has been in the budget for 4 years. I've needed help for 4 years. I take full responsibility for delaying that simply because of my, just the way I am. I'm a mover and a shaker. I get things done. I'm at the point in my life, though, where I realize that my ability should focus in certain areas. That certainly doesn't mean that I won't be out in the field. On the contrary, I want to keep that dialogue and relationship open. But my time is better well spent focusing on some of the things that you mentioned, and a local building inspector could be delegated to do some of the routine inspections that need to be done. The other thing is, I'm at a point in my life with Cheryl that I want to work a 40-hour work week. I don't want to work 50 or 60 hours anymore. Not that I won't if I'm needed, but I just want to put my time in, do my job, do it well, and, go home after 40.
Yeah. May I ask a question before we take a vote? Selectman Pacheco, you can go first, sir.
Yes, so how much money have we budgeted in the past for this?
$11,000 a year.
So I'm troubled that we budgeted for 4 years, $11,000 for a position that we haven't filled. I'm not saying there wasn't a need for it, but we definitely should have moved on this earlier because you clearly need help.
Right. So,
not that you're not, yeah.
Okay, yeah. So just to clarify, I do have an assistant currently. So some funding has been expended from that account. It didn't sit idle for 4 years. But Glenn Hathaway, as you know, is my assistant. He's just not available during the day.
Correct.
He runs his own department of many, and he just hasn't been able to help me in the way that has evolved. So now, and I've done the best I can to keep up, and I have, but I think it's time, and again, I take full responsibility for delaying it, but it's time that we finally get someone in to give me a hand. But I want to emphasize, we're talking about, part-time, much less than 20 hours a week, non-benefited position, similar to what my inspectors are now, but that's what we need to hash out. So I don't anticipate the funding request to be increased very much, but we're going to have to see what kind of response we get from competent certified individuals.
Yeah, that would be, I have zero building expertise, so I'm not pretending to have any or pretending to be a building inspector on TV. But what I would imagine is just how it would work, Mr. Commissioner, is if someone is like in this field, I would assume they would have a job in the field. How would they do 11 hours? So I totally think I get where you're coming from on this, why it might be, or 20 hours or 15 hours, whatever, why it might be hard to fill. That does make sense.
Right. And that's been one of the problems in the past. And the other thing too, which you have to understand, and I know you know me better than most because we work intimately together, this person has to be an extension of me and how I run this office. So yeah, maybe I'm a little bit picky, but there's been opportunities to bring people in the past and they just haven't made the grade. So I just choose to do it myself instead of dealing with the alternative.
Yep.
But I think with the town administrator's help, which we never had before until her employment, I think we can go out and find someone who will be an extension of me, my office, and still be competent and certified to meet the needs.
Thank you. Selectman Goulart?
Thank you.
I just want to add, because we've talked about the projects and all that, and having this position budgeted, in the budget for several years. 4 years ago, 3 years ago, we did not have the largest construction project this town has seen in years in our backyard. And he's responsible for that. That period of time, we did not have an active stormwater committee. He's a member of that, and he is required to do site visits. In addition to licensing or permitting solar farms, he's actually got to go out there multiple times, along with the health agent and others, to do inspections. So that's added to it also. And this one's behind us, but the classroom, the wing that was added to the elementary school practically overnight, that was a big project. So I support doing this because the kind of things I'm talking about he's had to fit within his regular job duties, working hours. And the Aggie School project and the stormwater thing and solar farms, they are not going to go away. So hopefully he can train one of his new person to take some of those tasks.
Right. Well, thank you. The other thing too, real quickly, and we'll move on, is to Selectman Pacheco's point, is I always had the thought that, things would slow down from the building side. And I'm not talking about other extracurricular stuff. I'm talking about the building side. And fortunately for local receipts, I was wrong because the building permit count has stayed up. And I'm not sure if you reviewed the revenue stream last year or this just past fiscal year that came from here. It was the second highest year we've ever had for revenues in this department. So that slowdown is not going to come. So it's time, I want to see this job through to retirement. I want to make it there. So I'm just looking for a little bit of help. That's all.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I totally understand the situation. And like I said, when I first was elected, a lot of the problem was just growth in town. And I'm sure that kept you busy. This town is still growing. And then on top of that, we've also have all these other infrastructure projects. And then you just have, Mr. Commissioner, your regular daily stuff of just inspection. And you're busy. And I appreciate you exploring this. My only question, Mr. Commissioner, is if this gets approved, meaning like you come back with some specific figures, the Board of Selectmen says, okay, yeah, you need to fill this position. You and the town administrator would be doing the interviews, right? So I would hope
Correct.
that you would pick someone that you would not have to be double checking their work, so to speak. Because I know you're sort of particular like me about your work and you take pride in it. So I get
Just a
that. And
little.
I would want you to not have to worry while you're doing something else, because that would defeat the purpose of having someone
Yeah.
that you don't trust.
Exactly. I'm not going to settle. I've waited this long, and as I said, I want to see this career through to retirement here in Dayton. So, with that said, I agree completely with you. And although I probably won't find that perfect individual, because they broke the mold. Thankfully, the world can't take two of me. But that said, I think the town administrator and I can put our heads together and, based on the responses, we'll come up with someone. And if not, then we'll just keep searching. That's all.
Sure. And then we'll have to think about how to make it attractive for someone. But that's we'll see how it goes, and we can have that, cross that bridge if it comes to it.
Yeah, the town administrator and I have some ideas. So I think at this point, we just looking for the board's feeling on it. Make sure you're supportive. And then, I told the town administrator when we talked, I want to be fiscally responsible to the townspeople. I've been that way since I came here. So I'm going to continue in that, on that line. But by the same token, I finally realized that I need some help. So we'll see it through, and hopefully it works out.
Sounds good. Mrs. Brady, we had a motion in a second. I feel like that was all under discussion. Did I remember
Sorry.
that correctly? No, it's okay. I just want to make sure we're not repeating anything. We didn't?
We made a motion.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay.
Yeah, and I seconded it about 20 minutes ago.
Yep. Sounds about right. It's all coming back to me now. It's a Celine Dion song. All right. So we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? The ayes have it, and that motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Commissioner.
Yep.
Next, we have the scheduled announcements. Selectman Pacheco.
I'm sorry, I do have public input.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry. Yes, public input.
I apologize. So as the public may be aware, we had a dangerous dog hearing on Monday as a result of that hearing, and it was posted publicly. Mrs. Duddy, this is Dawn Duddy, had written a statement that she wanted to be read at this meeting. So I'm just going to put it in her words because I don't want to summarize for her. I'm writing this to address a statement made by Selectwoman Nancy Goulart during the dangerous dog hearing on August 24th regarding my ex-husband's dog, Roxy. Since I was unknowingly included in this incident for reasons unknown, although I don't believe there to be any malicious intent, I'm respectfully asking that my voice and concerns be heard. First, I would like to extend my sincere condolences to the Thomases for the loss of their dog. It's a very tragic situation for everyone involved, including my children, who will also be losing their dog, Roxy. There is no happy ending to any part of the situation for any of the parties involved and for everyone, including the Thomases. I feel truly sorry. That being said, I came across the YouTube video of the dangerous dog hearing posted on 2 public town Facebook pages by a Mrs. Rhonda Kelly Thomas. While watching the hearing, I heard Nancy Goulart make the statement publicly shaming me, referred to by Mrs. Goulart as the former Mrs. Duddy, in quotations, for not attending the meeting. I want to start by saying that first, James and I have been separated for almost 10 years now. I've not lived at his address since then. James obtained Roxy after we were separated, and she has never been in my custody, nor have I been responsible for her care in any way. I spoke to the veterinarian's office, since we use the same one, and they assured me that my name is not on his account. Second, I'd like to make it clear that I was never invited to nor notified of any such hearing. Had I known that my presence was requested, I would have notified the town administrators of the above mentioned information prior to any such event. In conclusion, the hearing was negatively reflecting on my ex-husband and his dog. Nancy Goulart publicly attached me to a situation that has nothing to do with me in any way, and any proper investigation of the situation would have proven that. The hearing was posted on 2 public town Facebook forums, and negative comments were then made about me along with my ex-husband. The comments were taken down, however, it doesn't stop the public opinion of me to which I'm being included in something that is beyond my control or responsibilities. I would like to ask that the comment regarding my lack of participation of the hearing made by Selectwoman Nancy Goulart get publicly retracted. Furthermore, this was a public, professional, in quotations, town meeting to which personal opinions by town representatives should not have been present. Again, I can appreciate the emotions felt by all regarding this situation, and I hope you can appreciate my grievance on the situation I brought forth regarding my involvement in this matter. I just pray for a peaceful solution for all involved and ask that everyone remember I have children that still live in this town that are also feeling the aftermath of all of the public negativity regarding their father and their dog. I appreciate you taking the time to hear me. Respectfully submitted, Don Duddy.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to respond.
Absolutely, Selectman Goulart, you have the floor.
Mrs. Duddy, you are absolutely correct. There was no malicious intent. And you saw at the beginning of the meeting, when I was asked if I had comments, I did ask to hear from the owners of the dog that died or had to be put down. The remarks that I made about your not being present were based on the Animal Control Office's report of August the 18th. There's 3 little sections I'm going to read. I'm not going to read the whole document. It is a public document if you wish to request it as a public document. It's dated August 18th, 2020. The first entry I will reference is 9:56 a.m. Received a call from Mr. Duddy stating that his ex-wife had found a place in Rhode Island that would take the dogs, plural dogs, and adopt them out. I told Mr. Duddy that this makes me very uneasy as the dog is going to bite again, and next time could be a child. The next one I'll cite is at 12:02 p.m. I texted Mr. Duddy to ask him who the dog belongs to. 1:06 p.m. Mr. Duddy responded to my text. He stated it was his and his ex-wife's dog. He stated she knows what is going on. I told him he should inform her because she could be held responsible for some of the payment. So that's the document I had in front of me. And that's the document I relied on, that you were an owner. Now, your email was forwarded to me by the town administrator, and I got it at 7:44 p.m. on August the 25th. So it was the day after the hearing, and that's when I happened to sign on and print this. As far as any publicly shaming, there was no intent to shame you or anything. Again, I relied on the statements that that Mr. Duddy made to the animal control officer. As far as referencing the investigation that was done, I'm not in a position to comment on that. We all received, we the board and the town administrator all received the same documents, and any questions that came up were answered. So I can't criticize the report that was presented to us. She was one of the people who investigated this, and I relied on the accuracy. As far as what happened on Facebook, I'm not on Facebook. I don't post to Facebook. I don't read Facebook. Anything that happened on Facebook, I had nothing to do with, and it was certainly not my intent, as any public meeting we have, that people post things, they might hear a selectmen's meeting or something, and they post things that are hurtful or cause distress to people. Absolutely not. I have stated now that based on the information you have provided, that, and which Mrs. Aaronstein just read, you're not, and never have been, according to your statement, a co-owner of the particular dog that was involved in this. It's unfortunate that this misinformation was given to the animal control officer, but rest assured, Mrs. Duddy, I mean no harm to you. I mean nothing malicious. Again, Facebook, That's not me. So it is very unfortunate that anyone would have taken statements and put that out there, and that you were on the receiving end of, I'll say, I don't know what they were, but comments that caused you distress and upset you.
Can I comment on that?
Of course, Selectman Pacheco.
Yes, I as well as Mrs. Goulart, I was of the impression also that Mrs. Duddy was the co-owner of these dogs. Although I didn't make any comments about it, going into that hearing, I thought there were two dog owners. So I understand where Mrs. Goulart was coming from, because that's the information that we were given. Now, since then, obviously, we've got other information. Mrs. Goulart doesn't need to be defended by me, but I did have the same impression that she had, from what she just voiced now, that there were two owners. So that's all I wanted to say about that.
Anyone else? I didn't have anything to add under this. Madam Administrator? No?
Nope, I just,
You just read the, I know, you just read the correspondence. We will be kind to the messenger. Under Selectman, if Selectman Goulart has no further comments, I'm happy to move to scheduled announcements. Selectman
No,
Pacheco?
I'm all set. Thank you.
Okay, no worries. You have the floor, sir.
Yes, so I'll quickly go over the scheduled announcements. The Town of Dayton's food bank distribution will be held next on September 19th, 2020, located in the Town Hall, the lower level, as a drive-through. Now, this is at 8 o'clock in the morning. Early voting began this past Sunday on August 22nd, and is going to end tomorrow, August 27th. Residents can either vote by mail or in person at the Dayton Town Hall, lower level, from 7:30 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. The Town of Dayton annual auction will go live on September 1st, 2020, and I will announce the vacancies. Rather than say how many people are needed in these different committees and boards, I'm just going to name the committees and boards that need at least one member. So first of all is the ADA Commission, the Bylaw Review Committee, the Cable Television Committee, the Cemetery Commission, Community Preservation Committee, Conservation Commission, Cultural Council, Development and Industrial Committee, Dayton Trails Committee, DR Regionalization Study Committee, DR School District Facilities Committee, Finance Committee, Historical Commission, Industrial and Development Financing Authority, Land Use Committee, Open Space Committee, Superintendent of Pest Control, Taxation Aid Committee, TIF Review Board, and the Zoning Board of Appeals. So we're seeking members to these different committees, and there's a volunteer form that's on our website, on the Facebook page. Actually, I don't know if it's on the Facebook page, but it's on our website, and you can apply for these positions, and it will come before the board. We're definitely in need of people to join these committees.
Mrs. Brady, can we add the Municipal Building Study Committee to that list as well? And then maybe you, myself, Madam Administrator, and Leanne can brainstorm on how we can get the message out on this, so we can get more interest and get these commissions filled. With that being said, Madam Administrator, you have the floor for your report.
I feel like in college they would have like a little fair. We should do that. Okay. We'll have to do it virtually. Okay, so I have a few things on my report tonight. The first is just an update on the Shared Streets program. So some may remember that we were lucky enough to receive a Shared Streets grant for our Somerset Ave, Pleasant Street, Main Street intersection, and that is off and running. Received those funds, and we're ready to go. The other application I had sent in was relative to the Dayton Middle School sidewalk. I'm actually glad Jonathan's still on the call. The Dayton Middle School sidewalk entry area. When we went the first time for this, they liked our project, but because it wasn't focusing on new elements enough, they were like, can you rewrite this essentially and show us what exactly is going to be new about it? So we went back to the drawing board and had a whole new look at what we were doing there. And it still takes care of some of the items on that self-evaluation transition plan by providing ramp access to the loading zone. And one of the goals of the Shared Streets program is to pay attention to parent drop-off and pickup zones. So this is one of those. And then the point that Mr. Gale made earlier about it being a public building for other things, public assemblies, town meetings, it's our emergency dispensing site, it's our emergency shelter in times of, you know, if power goes out or you need a warming shelter, things like that. So it's a very key building and we have to make sure it's accessible. So we went back to the drawing board and resubmitted it, and I will find out on Monday if we were successful in that endeavor. So I just want, this is more of an update for the public to know that we didn't drop that program, that project. It's just in a new funnel. This next item is
Madam
about.
Administrator, I'm sorry, I didn't chime in at the right time.
Sorry.
I did want to ask you a quick question, or just give a quick comment. I'm really proud of the team, you especially, for pursuing this second project. The reason is because that's near and dear to my heart, because that issue with the what do you call that? The ramp up onto the sidewalk at DMS was the first issue I had heard of that really opened my eyes to the lack of ADA compliance in town. So I just wanted to thank you and the team for putting a spotlight on this. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. And how we kind of revised it, it's pedestrian protection as well, from the entry all the way to the I call it the rear parking lot, but it's like that second overflow parking lot. And so it collects people correctly. So everyone is safe. Okay. Thank you very much for your comments. The next item is the sewer study. As people are aware, we went to town meeting asking for funds to hire an engineer to help us figure out if sewer expansion was a worthy endeavor or not, as far as cost is concerned. So we went through this whole thing with Woodard and Curran, analyzed and set up a 3 sewer shed system. And now we're down to looking for funding. And if we didn't get any funding and we got a loan or we went out and paid for this ourselves, it would basically double the tax rate. So obviously that's not happening. So we're very aggressive in finding federal and state funds to pay for this project. The only problem is we're a little too much of a blank canvas, which I always think is a benefit. But we don't have a big box store or any big name to tie to the project, so MassWorks doesn't like it. EDA funds, which is the Economic Development Administration, federal, they really want to see manufacturing jobs. We don't have that. It's not a benefit for retail stores for them. We're also not an opportunity zone, but we are sandwiched between 2 opportunity zones. So in speaking with a connection at Serpide for EDA, we are going to go back to the drawing board with how we've laid out the sewer and try to partner with Somerset, potentially. I mean, I have to see if this is a good deal for Dayton at the end of the day, but if we do find that this is advantageous, our chances of EDA funding skyrocket. And then we connect those 2 opportunity zones. So we get what we want and Somerset ends up getting what they want, and Swansea as well, I believe, because they're connected. They're in this district thing together. So it's a little bit of a symbiotic relationship.
And we get what we want, we get what we want, which is a grant, and taxpayers get what they want, which is not higher taxes.
And EDA is not like USDA where you have to pay anything back. It is a grant. So obviously that's attractive to us. So I just wanted to give the board and the public some update on that. Tom Ferry is my liaison from the Sewer Commission, so he is kept abreast of these things too. But we will have to eventually, soon really go to the Sewer Commission and kind of tell them what's going on. So I have a phone call tomorrow scheduled and I'll know more then. And I just wanted to tell people we're sort of providing a redirection to see better funding opportunities, hopefully.
I think that my 2 cents are, if you want to hear them, Madam Administrator, right? My 2 cents are just that I think we've been very honest and upfront with Selectman Goulart and Selectman Pacheco about not having taxpayer money pay for this, and the need to really get grant funds to pay for most, if not all of it, quite frankly. So, so I would, if I were you 2, I would fully expect things to keep evolving with this project, with the understanding that the reason it is evolving is because we're just being mindful of the taxpayer. So that's all.
Which is good.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Lastly is our hazard mitigation plan. So it has been accepted by FEMA. So all of that hard work is paid off, and the board now has to vote to adopt the plan. This now becomes our plan for 5 years, and we have to show progress on the projects that we've selected as our key hazards. And then at the end of 5 years, they're going to want to know if you didn't do anything, why on each particular project. And the good news here is we're very active in our stormwater, so we're already ticking away on some of these items, even the small stuff. So it's a good solid plan, well-rounded, that it's actually we're able to accomplish the items listed here. So it won't just go on a shelf. It's an active, what we like to say here is a living document, right? That's our that's our catchphrase. So the selectmen just need to vote on it, and then you have to come back to the office and sign it. That goes as part of the plan. And then in 5 years, we're going to have to do this again and show that we've made some progress. And that doesn't mean that we have to get every project done, but we have to show that we're making progress.
Can I, just a quick question, and then I want to open it up to my colleagues. So you remember how with the green communities, we also had 5 years to reduce our energy consumption by 20%, but we could choose our baseline. Is the baseline for this 5-year clock to start ticking is 2020, right? When it gets accepted?
Right now, when the pandemic slowed us down a little bit, but we had last December that one workshop that really was a culmination of all the different problems that we have, and that what we highlighted that we want to fix to mitigate any risks that may come our way from really anything but climate related, mostly because we're a coastal community. So it's really 5 years from like you have 5 years from now, but we've already gotten started. So we basically have a head start.
Like we did with green communities.
That's right.
That's what we're proactive town.
Put ourselves in the best foot forward.
Colleagues, questions, comments? You have the floor.
I'm ready to make a motion.
Oh, okay, that's fine too.
Mr. Chairman, I move that the board vote to formally approve and adopt the Town of Dayton 2020 Local Hazard Mitigation Plan in accordance with MGL Chapter 40.
I'll second that motion.
We have a motion and a second. Under discussion, do we already have this online? And if not, can we put it on our website? I think it might already be there for some reason.
I think that it is. I will double check, but yes.
Okay.
All of our plans should be on there. I've tried to do that so people know what we're talking about.
Oh, it might be under policies. You're right. Selectman Goulart?
I think it was because we asked for public input.
Yeah.
I
So I have a grant page, and it will have all of our plans have been through grant, so it's all on there.
I understand.
This 5-year plan, I'll call it, this is similar to what happens with the NPDES permit that we got approved for stormwater. The one we got approved is a 10-year plan, and we have to show every year that we have met the requirements of year 1 and 2, so forth and so on. And if you don't, why didn't you? And are you working on completing it? So I kind of chuckled when I saw this and I heard the 5-year report, because I thought, here we go.
Another clock that has started ticking.
That's right. What is so great is so many people, both in the town, connected to town, and outsiders who came to those workshops and helped all of us put this together. It was just great.
It really was. I was kind of afraid of this one because it was so massive and a lot of involvement, but it was very, very good, great experience and lots of teamwork. It's exactly what you'd want. It's like the ideal.
Yeah, kudos to Fuss and O'Neill too.
Yes, marvelous to work with.
Anything else?
Yeah, just a point of clarification. When the town administrator said that we have to come back in 5 years on this plan, that she doesn't mean personally that we have to come back.
Yeah, I do.
I don't know what I'm doing tomorrow, so I can't plan for 5 years. So
well, that's my job, I guess. Make sure we do it.
You'll be here. You'll be here.
Throwing roots, cobwebs.
And the building commission is going to be here.
Apparently, yeah, he said so.
People anyhow.
Yep.
This is on tape.
That's right.
We're in good hands, Diane. We're in good hands. So we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? The ayes have it, and that motion passes. And again, good work, everyone. I mean that. Very proud. Under new business, we have acts on the, since we did A already, and we didn't have old business. And just a quick question, because I didn't check when I should have. Did we receive anything via email or by phone, Mrs. Brady? We didn't have anything on Zoom. Okay, just making sure for public input. Act on the Cable Committee's recommendation to declare surplus.
Did
No,
we
we're
act
gonna
on
do
A?
A.
We didn't do the
We haven't
commissioner.
done-
Oh, we
I
didn't.
stole it. No.
That was
Yeah.
when I took it off the list, thinking that the other conversation was that. Sorry, my apologies. So we have a couple items, Mr. Commissioner, on this list.
Yes, so what you have before you tonight, if you're looking at the surplus list with the 3 items highlighted at the bottom, this is an accurate list of all of the items that will go live on the auction. If you approve this tonight, the titles will be emailed over to the auctioneer, and then they'll be going live next week. So you have, I hope it's in your packet. You acted on the fire chief's request earlier for car 4. You had a letter that was submitted to you previously by the sewer department for the first generator, which is generator orange. That's a generator that I was not aware existed, but the sewer department has declared it surplus. I know that at last week's meeting, or the last meeting, I asked you not to declare it surplus until I was able to fully realize whether they could be repurposed. I have determined now that that generator from the sewer department and the second generator, which is described as Onan, which is an 11K generator located at the old police station, both those generators cannot be repurposed. And they're actually great candidates for auction items because they're both still functional and have some value to them. So I'd like to ask you to move to declare the 2 generators surplus, and we include those in the auction.
Okay.
I'll make a motion that we declare as surplus the generator orange and the generator green Onan as surplus.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? The ayes have it, and that motion passes.
Thank you,
Could I-
Board.
Thank you.
Could I ask Mr. Aguirre, while you're still here, what is the process for this auction?
So we have already done a lot of the background work. The auctioneer has already been to town. It's the same auction firm that we used for the last auction, which went flawlessly. So a lot of the back work is already done. They're waiting for us after tonight's meeting to get the go-ahead. I need to fax him all of the titles, which I've been compiling. The only one I have outstanding is car 4, which you've now declared tonight, and I will obtain tomorrow. Once that email is received, they'll verify that the titles match the list that you have before you, which they now have pictures of all the equipment. And this will go live as early as Monday. And then I've worked with the town administrator and Karen Brady for the newspaper posting. So that's going to happen, I believe, as early as this week. So approximately 2.5 to 3 weeks from today, the auction will close, and then we'll hopefully have similar interest like we had last time, which I think we were able to produce about $50,000 in revenue. The auctioneer thinks that we have some great equipment this time, so we have less equipment than last time, but he thinks the quality and the shape of the equipment is good enough to bring fairly decent proposals. So let's hope.
And 949 is also part of this auction?
Correct. That is going to be listed completely separate. He feels that there's going to be a lot of interest in the property. He did a great job with the picture taking, and but he's not going to include it in the same auction. He's actually going to give it a place on the Auction International's homepage to give it more exposure. So again, we're hoping to have a lot of interest as well.
Thank you.
Very nice.
Welcome.
So we have a motion and a second. Anything else under discuss, or did we already take the vote on this? We did, I thought so.
We did, yes.
Yes, you voted.
Does anyone have any other questions regarding the, anything else for the building commissioner before we move on? And Mr. Commissioner, you can stay, but I did just want to ask.
That's okay. I just have one comment on the next item, so I'll stay until that one.
Yeah, well, you can stay. You're public, and you work there, so you can stay as long as you want.
Remember that 40-hour thing I said earlier?
Yeah, correct. Well, this is where we're getting up to 50, 60. It's probably 20 hours of meetings just with us.
Right. Nancy's on vacation too, so.
You're feeling it.
I am.
All right. So did you have comments you wanted to make under the cable committee's recommendation for surplus?
Yeah, so the cable committee's list includes items that I think we should retain. A lot of them, I looked at them all today. There are some chairs and some other items that I think can be used by other departments. So although I'm fine with you declaring it surplus, that way we can move to auction it if needed. I'd like to see if other departments need any of that stuff before we dispose of it.
May I make a suggestion, everyone? Could we before we act on this, could we maybe take this under advisement, put some feelers out to other departments, what is available, and see if anyone has any interest in it before we do this?
We're not going to meet before the auction. Is this
Yeah,
Selectman Goulart, I actually don't have any there's such a small amount of stuff that I actually don't have a problem if it waits until the next auction round, but you know, that's up to you.
I also think somebody spoke up and claimed the chair, one of the
I
chairs.
was gonna say, why did I feel like that happened, yeah.
There's been a couple of claims, right?
I was going to make a motion that we declare it surplus pending determining whether or not any other department can use it. That way, if we declare it surplus, anybody wants it, something, they can have it. And if there are any leftovers, they can go to the auction. And it doesn't have to go to this auction. But at least we will have declared it.
Selectman Pacheco?
Yes, I was going to suggest the same thing, so I'll second Mrs. Goulart's motion.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Mr. Commissioner, is that okay? Just in your mind. I know you didn't have really a preference. Okay.
Oh, perfect. Thank you.
Any further discussion on this? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? The ayes have it, and that motion passes. Next, and thank you, Mr. Commissioner.
Thank
Mr.
you.
Chairman?
Good night, everyone. Thank you for your help.
Mr.
Yeah.
Jim,
Thank
Jim?
you.
Yep,
Jim?
I'm here. I'm here.
Don't leave yet. Mr. Chairman,
Yep, I'm sorry. You were waiting.
Um,
for me. I was looking at the agenda.
I just want to tell you about a email that I had sent to the director of the, the superintendent director at the Aggie School, and I mentioned this to Mr. Aguirre. We had a little discussion. So before he leaves, at the Stormwater Committee meeting, Mr. Aguirre and Mr. Pilling gave us a glowing report on the progress of the construction project. And it was mentioned that, as we all know, the little white building that's been known as the Natural History Museum is going to be demolished because the contents are going to be located in the new 3-story building. So I sent an email to the superintendent director with a scavenging request and asked if after the Aggie School takes what it wants and before everything is completely disposed of, would they consider allowing the town of Dayton, namely Mr. Aguirre and maybe Mr. Pilling, to go to the site and see if there is lumber or other materials that could be used, because as the superintendent director knows and has seen, we have some very creative employees. So in discussing this with Mr. Agia, we felt it was a good idea. The response was from the superintendent director, what a great idea. I will take it to the Board of Trustees. So we may get some, I'll call it historic materials, but it would reduce the cost of them shipping, removing whatever's left. So we'll get a report later on, but I wanted to mention that while Mr. Agia was still at the meeting.
Fabulous. Good work.
Very good. Thank you, Selectman Goulart, for spearheading that. We appreciate it.
We recycle everything.
We try. Thank you very much. Good night. Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Good
Thank
night.
you.
Good night.
So now we have on the agenda is new business D, review and act on the request to waive insurance requirements for the use of the gazebo. Bear with me just a moment. Madam Administrator, do you mind starting? Because it's going to take me 2 minutes to scroll.
That's fine. Is this on the gazebo?
Yep. So this is for the wedding, I believe.
Sure, it's page 10, just to let you know. And so this woman is looking for, well, she'll be holding a wedding here on our property at the gazebo, and she's just looking, she sort of rolled everything out, but she's looking for you to waive the insurance requirement.
Okay.
Which is, we have this listed in our property use policy, and it's obviously Mrs. Brady gave her all of that information.
Okay. Anyone have any questions, colleagues?
Well, I do.
Sure.
Yeah, I know that in the past that we've asked other groups to provide the insurance, nonprofits, good organizations, but we've asked them because it could be a liability for the town. So as bad as I feel that we're kind of forcing her to get this insurance, I think to protect the town, we have to.
And I will just add to what Selectman Pacheco said. In the past, even for a town employee, we have waived a fee, like to use the old town hall, but we did not waive insurance. And if you'll remember, the last one that we were acting on was for the cruise nights, which obviously it didn't happen because of the pandemic, but and there was a volunteer to pay that insurance premium because the person who volunteered to pay it felt it was that important that we protect the town. Is there any kind of a fee involved with the gazebo?
I don't think so. Not that one, because it's so small.
No, so I agree with Selectman Pacheco. I don't think we can waive the insurance. I would think it would be a simple, and it shouldn't be a costly rider because they own property kind of across the street. I would think it would be something that they could get. It should be relatively inexpensive. They're not going to have a large group of people either, so I don't think it would be a major burden on them.
And I agree. I think everything that Selectman Pacheco has said is perfectly rational, and I'm gonna go. That's the way I am gonna vote tonight. Any further comments on this before I accept motions? Okay, I will entertain motions, but if we don't, I guess, want to waive it, then we won't have one. All right.
No, I think we got to vote on it. Mr. Chairman, I mote that, I mote, yeah. I
It's a
mote.
long night, Selectman Goulart.
It's a long night.
A mote is a move and a vote
Yes,
all
correct.
together.
Yep.
Okay.
We're saving time.
Multitasking.
I move that we deny the request to waive the insurance requirements for use of the gazebo for a wedding.
I second that motion.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? The ayes have it, and that motion passes. Next on the agenda, we have a possible appointment of Kay Nolicki to the Bylaw Review Committee. I didn't have any, I guess I had one question. Bear with me just a moment. My only question was, they applied for this committee, but in the comments, they said that they wanted to volunteer to help with mail-in voting. So I feel like they may have just filled this out to be able to send something to us as a volunteer form, because the way the online form works is if the person doesn't select a committee, it won't go through.
Well, that
So I
makes sense.
think they actually wanted to help with mail-in voting and they didn't actually want to be on a committee, is what I'm trying to say. I could be wrong.
I'm thinking they maybe wanted to do both.
They could have wanted to do both. That's true.
Karen knows something.
Yeah, great. Absolutely. Boss.
I didn't want to interrupt, but I did have a email conversation with her, and it seems like she does want to be on the bylaw committee.
Okay.
I asked her to fill out an actual form, and I emailed that to her just recently, but I haven't received it back yet. But she didn't say that she didn't want to be on the
Yeah.
bylaw review.
Okay. So I guess it sounds like she really wants to be on it. So I'm going to support this because we need that to be a functional, that's another
A
important.
quorum. So
Correct. Yeah, we need a quorum for that. So I'm okay with that. Thank you for following up with her too, Mrs. Brady. I appreciate it.
So before we make a motion on this, shouldn't we have the volunteer form though? To have
This-
all that information
Oh, I'm
before us?
sorry. You finished. I didn't finish my thought. My apologies.
Okay.
When you do it online, Selectman Pacheco, that is the form. What she sent is the online version of the volunteer form.
That is?
Yeah.
yeah.
Yep. That's what
Okay,
you select everything on the website,
Yeah.
and then when you click send, that's what it looks like when it comes through to us.
okay. I didn't know that.
But did she submit information about her background? Like if you fill it out on paper, you say why you're interested in, if you've had experience?
She didn't attach a resume to the online form, it doesn't look like.
She didn't, but I did supply that to her, and we haven't received it back yet.
So is that what you're looking for, Selectman Pacheco? Some information?
Yes.
I agree. I agree.
So hold till next meeting or whenever we get this.
Yeah, well, we've got a meeting coming up next week, right?
Maybe. Depending on the rest of the
I feel like actually we got through a lot of what I was concerned we wouldn't, so maybe we don't need to have one next week. So the 9th, do you think we could have that information for the 9th?
Sure, we'll reach out to Ms. Nolicki and organize it.
Thank you.
Yep.
Next on the agenda, so we'll come back to that on the 9th, is to appoint Tim Rhines to the Storm Committee, and I believe he would be the Planning Board representative. So I will entertain motions.
Mr. Chairman,
I so move.
second,
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
yes. So what this means is that Mr. Pius, who was the planning board rep, will remain on the Stormwater Committee, but now he will be the Board of Health representative. Mr. Pilling, who has been the Board of Health representative, said he's willing to stay on the committee as a non-voting member, but this committee was set up with 7 people. We've had a vacancy all along. And if it's agreeable, I would like to amend the motion to have Mr. Pilling remain on the Stormwater Committee as a voting member. So we would be acting on both Mr. Rhines and keeping Mr. Pilling as a voting member.
That's fine with me. Selectman, excuse me, Madam Administrator?
I don't think we can act on the Pilling appointment.
No,
or-
yeah. I wanted to be clear. I'm okay with what you're proposing, Selectman Goulart, but it's not on the agenda. So can we
I'm gonna make a note for the 9th.
yeah,
All right, I will withdraw the amendment.
thank you.
So we just have the motion to appoint Mr. Rhines. I think it's really important that we have a 7th member.
Mhm.
And if he's our expert as far as everything related to, I'll call it engineering. Everyone on that committee is an expert in something.
Mhm.
And I think it's very important that he be a voting member.
Well, I feel like you should have an odd number. I'm not even giving my opinion about Mr. Pilling.
Exactly.
Just like, what if
Exactly.
it was 3 versus 3? Like, who's the vice president that weighs in, right? Correct. Yeah. Roz. I love it. Okay. So we have a motion and a second on Mr. Rhines. Any further discussion? And we will discuss potentially appointing Mr. Pilling on the 9th. Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? The ayes have it. That motion passes. Next is appoint Jeffrey Carvalho, who is our newest planning board member, as a Serpent commissioner. Bear with me one moment. I just want to get the date right. It is through May 22nd, 2021. Sorry.
So I'm going to make a motion that we accept the resignation of Joseph Figueredo from the Serpent Commissioner, as the Serpent Commissioner.
No, we already did that. Meeting, what, I think last time,
Did we?
Selectman Pacheco. Yeah, we did.
Oh.
But
And we said with thanks and regret. So I think we only need to act on Mr. Cavallo.
Yes, I'll make a motion. Yes, thank you. I'll make a motion to appoint Jeff Cavallo to the Serpent Commissioner through May 22nd, 2021.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on this? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? The ayes have it, and that motion passes. Next, we have to rescind the vote to appoint Mr. Jim Reddy to the Land Use Committee. So I will entertain motions.
I'll make a motion that we rescind the vote to appoint Jim Reddy to the Land Use Committee.
A second.
And Mrs. Brady, I assume Mr. Reddy got back to us and said that he no longer would serve, right? Okay, so this isn't us just making sure, that's all. Yeah, exactly, Madam Administrator. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? The ayes have it, and that motion passes. And I would be remiss if I didn't thank Mr. Reddy, who has served this town in many, many capacities. Thank you, sir. You certainly don't owe the town anything. You have served honorably, and we appreciate it. Next is, yeah, he's a good guy. Next, to discuss setting a date for the special town meeting. Madam Administrator, I know you prepared the document, so do you want to open us up for discussion?
Sure. So I am here requesting that the town of Dayton, that the Board of Selectmen set a special town meeting. And this is all barring that we can pull off an indoor or outdoor, whatever constraints we may have. But I want us to start planning towards a special town meeting. And I'm requesting November 16th, which is usually later for us than we normally have. But I'd like to give the town clerk plenty of time between all of the early voting and presidential election stuff that she has to deal with. She generally likes a week in between. I gave her 2 because she deserves it. So I'm asking for November 16th. I didn't get to talk to Carol yet, and hopefully she's okay with delaying tax classification, but we'll see. So the document I prepared is basically a schedule based upon if the special town meeting date is November 16th, what we would then start doing. So if you did set that date, we would open the warrant at our next meeting and vote to close it on October 5th. At your meeting of October 7th, the Board of Selectmen would vote on the articles that would be included on the warrant to be heard by the people. And then we would have a very nice legal review period that I really love there. Then you would sign on October 21st and vote on your recommendations, or you actually have an extra meeting in between that you could take to vote on your recommendations if you wanted, but the warrant would be posted by November 2nd. So it's a nice schedule that gives us lots of time in between.
Does anyone have any, I know we usually have it sometime in the beginning of October, typically, at least since I've been here. So I do want to open this up to everyone else. Colleagues, comments, concerns, you have the floor. but you got to take it.
I'm going to make a motion that we have the special town meeting on November 16th, 2020.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on this? I did just, oh, Selectman Goulart, I saw you. You go.
We've actually had one that was right around the beginning of December because I forgot what happened and what caused it.
I recall
But
that.
it was extremely difficult because of what we were up against for setting a tax rate.
And I just wanted to, so I know we do normally have it in October. Again, at least it's been that way since I was elected to the board. But in just other discussions that the town administrator and I had, like for example, with the planning board regarding the bylaw, this later date would actually help them be able to go through the rigmarole of having the hearings and actually getting the language correct in the revised bylaw, running it by council. And so I suspect that having it a little bit later than we normally do might be beneficial to some other boards and departments as well. Anything else? Hearing none? Perfect. Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? The ayes have it. That motion passes. Madam Administrator, will vote at our September 9th meeting on opening the warrant.
Mhm.
Okay. Do we need to adopt this schedule or anything?
Nope.
Okay,
No, that's just to give everybody an idea of what's going on.
awesome. Well, thank you for putting it together. And it sounds like things are gonna go off without a hitch, hopefully, on November 16th. Okay, next on the agenda, absolutely fingers crossed, is discuss an act on the MS4 Municipal Assistance Grant, which is due September 15th. Selectman Goulart, I know this is near and dear to you. It's your baby, so you have the floor.
I was contacted by Bill Napolitano. I contacted him and said, have you got any ideas for this? Because you had talked to us when we were working on actually one of the MVP meetings. He wanted to get some kind of a joint project or something that we could get funding for through a grant that would involve Dighton, Berkeley, Freetown. And now we did participate in the review of bylaws with Audubon, but that wasn't a grant type thing. So he got back to me and said, Mr. Schaefer from Taunton Development, Mr. Schaefer is the gentleman that was involved with the
Green Harbor
purchase of
in Brook Street.
Council 2,
Mhm.
the $150,000 from the Development Corp.
Yes, you were right.
So I wrote back to Mr. Napolitano and said, we've talked about doing something at Broad Cove. How about some kind of consideration of, can we build some kind of a boardwalk or something from that piece of property that the town acquired right on the Somerset border that would go into that protected land that's there that Somerset owns? He hasn't gotten back to me. I realize the time is very, very short, but if we aren't able to put something together to meet that September deadline, this is something that Mr. Fournette has talked about for quite a while, being able to have a wooden boardwalk on part of Broad Cove. And some kind of a joint venture, if Taunton Development has money. My other thought is that there is a section of that marsh where people used to, I'll call it farm, salt hay that they put on strawberries. And I'm wondering if there could be any kind of funding like there was for Council Oak 2, that somehow we could tie this all together, because there was this, I'll call it agricultural use on a section of the marsh. So I haven't got anything back from Bill. And I think he was going to get in touch with Mr. Schaefer. So as soon as I get something, I'll let you know. But that's how this all came about. And as I say, if we don't make it this time, I think we'll still keep looking to see if we can do something jointly with a neighboring community, especially if there's grant money involved.
Absolutely. And if there's anything you need from the board, you'll let us know.
Absolutely. And I'll be working with the town administrator too.
Fabulous. I love it. It said grant, so I would assume that she was involved.
Yep.
Okay.
Hopefully she won't have to do all the work because we'll have Bill doing that.
Yes, yes. Pass the buck, please. Anything else under the MS4, Selectman Goulart?
No, Mr. Ferry and I will be meeting as far as doing the basic, I'll call it the working copy so that we can file it online. It's due by the 28th of September. I think what we'll be doing is just gathering the statistics, the kind of things that we have to report about, tons of crud that was removed from basins and how many basins were cleaned and how many inspections were done, all of that stuff. We've got to look at the NPDES permit also to see what we said we were going to do and where we are with those on that 10-year plan. So we're working on it.
Thank you, Selectman Goulart. And last but not least under new business is to discuss the potential use of CARES money for students attending BP Regional and also Bristol County Agricultural High as well. As everyone knows, I'll just set the scene. CARES money has obviously been used for some things from the town, and some of it has been used for the school for things like Chromebooks, which I think approved at our last meeting. Obviously, those are not the only school districts here. So we also have the Aggie School, and some of our students go to BP as well. And so I just wanted to ask, has anyone reached out to either of those schools, and have they stated that they might have any expenditures under CARES? Madam Administrator.
Oh, Selectman Goulart, I'll wait.
You both can have the floor.
So,
Whoever first.
Yes, as a matter of fact, I got to tell you about, I told you about the scavenging requests. So in talking with, separately with Alex McGalis and Adele Sands, on other matters, we were talking about CARES. And I said, how are you doing with your CARES? You know, you're going to spend the money. Well, we're trying, so forth, so on. And I said to them, the towns of Dayton and Rehoboth, boards of selectmen have voted to provide assistance to DR Regional to provide Chromebooks for their students in grades 5 to 8 as requested. I said, we're not sure we're going to spend all of our Dayton money, and Rehoboth town doesn't think they're going to spend all of theirs. So I said, if you have a need that relates to Dayton students, and I'm sure Rehoboth students, if you have a need and you can't fund it with your own money, you should reach out to the respective towns. I think they were both overwhelmed that a member town would offer. And I said, well, Dayton students are Dayton students, and we belong to your schools like we belong to DR. I have not heard anything back. They were very grateful, and other than that, I haven't heard anything.
Okay.
So I have like a.
Yeah, you don't have to ask for permission. You have the floor.
So early in my discussions with the school department, with the DR school department, it came to light that Bristol Aggie was dealing directly with FEMA for some of their purchases. I will happily double check that, but I thought they had kind of a straight path to FEMA because they're a county school. The BP, the jury's out, I guess. I called over there and I had to leave a message. They did call back, but I was unfortunately on the phone dealing with another issue, so I couldn't switch over. But I wanted to ask basically what Selectman Goulart asked to see what their plans were. An idea the town accountant and I came up with, we had reached out to another town asking what they were doing with their vocational schools. And that town is simply taking the per pupil expenditure and multiplying it by the number of students, and then taking that kind of percentage and siphoning off the available CARES fund and sort of reserving it for them and their needs. I would much rather have a conversation and see what exactly those needs are Because what if we could utilize, like, especially now that we've targeted CARES Act for potentially helping us with the library problem, I don't want to siphon off funds that are going to leave the table if we don't use it, you know? So anyway, it's worth a conversation and just being up to date with things. Also, we're still waiting to hear back, just so I know people are following this issue. We're still waiting to hear back specifically on what Selectman Goulart had requested about itemized breakdowns for the Dayton Rehoboth School.
A spending plan or a budget.
Spending plan, and then the 2 grants, because there's 2 separate pots of money for schools. One came out later that, you know, was later after we were well on our way of dealing with CARES Act. So I don't have an answer for that yet, but I definitely think communication is key in this and just knowing. But I did believe that Bristol Aggie had a straight shot to FEMA.
I did make it clear to both of the superintendents that whatever, if they made a request, it had to be absolutely, positively, definitely allowable under the CARES Act, because we would not want to be audited and found out cited later. Oh, you shouldn't have done that because that's not covered. Now, I also know, and they said they understood that. I also know that because the Aggie school has students from Plymouth County, the state money went to the county, not to the communities. So any access to money from those communities has to go through Plymouth County or something.
And
I'm only interested in Dayton students. Can we do anything? And I had sent an email to Mr. Schwal. He called me back. We missed one another, but he did say that he felt that the Rehoboth board would certainly support doing something for their students at those 2 schools. So if I hear anything, I'll just let Mrs. Aaronstein know. And
thank you. Same.
but we offered, so, you know.
Well, I think, and I thank you, my colleagues, for summarizing well. I guess my thought is, I think it's a good approach to try to check the boxes before we start thinking about if the money can be used for the, I know we're already thinking about it, but before we really start earmarking anything for a specific project, I think it's good to have those conversations, see if they need anything out of the CARES money for the Dayton students there, and if not, then we can proceed with our plan. I think it's good to do that, though, to be cautious like that when proceeding.
Can CARES money be used in our town for any kind of food assistance? The city of Brattleboro, Vermont, has been on national television for what they've done with their CARES, some of their CARES money to help their farmers, to help their restaurants, and to feed their residents. And I'm not talking about that kind of a feeding program, but I didn't know if there was anything that we could offer with CARES money.
So yes, it's a qualified expenditure. The food pantry has been doing really well, accommodating needs. I haven't heard otherwise. It's been on my radar, but it's not, I don't want to say it's not a priority because that's not what I mean. But where the Lions Club has it covered, until they don't have it covered, you know, we don't have to. But yes, it is an allowable.
Okay.
It was for like if schools were I'm sorry to cut you off. Like if schools were kind of perpetuating their meals programs for low income students, even though schools were closed, that would have been allowable costs, things like that.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, there was one other topic that came up with those 2 superintendents that I just want to mention.
Yeah.
I have an answer on one. I don't have, I'm still waiting for an answer.
Yep.
Back when the Aggie school bond was, we voted at that Saturday, and then the legislation got passed. Sometime after that, Mr. Swartz had said to me, is this going to go to a town meeting for a debt exclusion? I said, I don't know. I said, this is unique. And then now that BP is talking about having a capital project. So during those conversations, I asked both of the superintendents, because I submitted the information to the DOR, the person who assists us. The answer came back on BP that yes, when we hear that capital budget is, they're going to start charging us, so forth, so on, that can be sent to a debt exclusion, okay? So that's how Dayton funds bond issue. So that's one thing. I don't have an answer yet on the Aggie school because of the way it took an act of the legislature to allow the project to go forward. So they asked for some more details, and the business manager sent them to me, and I forwarded them to the person at, it's a lady now that's answering. So I'm waiting to find that out too, so that I can respond to Mr. Swartz. It's been a long time, but we're getting close to the Aggie school bond issue, so we need to know that.
Thank you, Selectman Goulart. So more to come on CARES funds is the takeaway on that one.
Yeah.
Anything under Selectmen's reports, team? I don't have anything.
I don't have anything.
Just a quick couple of things. Town clerk told us today that 40 people have come in for early voting.
Mhm.
That she has an overwhelming return on voting by mail. She said somewhere between 1,000 and 1,500, she was guessing. So she's got a very good turnout by mail. Earlier you heard the town administrator talk about the project on Somerset Avenue and the grant money that came through. Mr. Ferry and I met with the last property owner yesterday, the last person we were waiting to respond, and we paid him for the easement and he signed off. So those have all been paid off. I'm working on a donation agreement that I've sent questions to Matt Costa on, because I believe this board is going to have to vote to accept that easement donation. It's a unique situation. It's not like we had for the Berkeley Dighton Bridge donation. But that's not going to hold anything up. Matt's got the, Matt Costa has the description, so he can start working on the order of taking. So that'll be on a future, excuse me, agenda to approve. The other thing I want to mention to you is today, Mrs. Aaronstein and I think it was Lisa from the assessors, sat in on a Zoom meeting of the Mass Assessors Association. Now, unfortunately, I didn't feel they understood the significance of Dayton prevailing in that lawsuit about solar farms. I believe he was chairman of the association. He just made a comment like, oh, that only relates to pilot agreements. And they were focusing on House Bill 4933 and an amendment to Section 15G. Well, all I could think of was you didn't read what the judge wrote, because there's a lot more than just pilot agreements in there if you really read it. So I think I reported before, I had forwarded that to MMA and asked them to please help us to get some of the judges' ruling into this climate bill, whether it's this amendment or another one, because it's that important. And it would really help communities that are facing the appellate tax board, because now we have case law. So anyhow, I did speak, and as I say, the chairman didn't seem to think that, this was significant. However, I told them, anybody wants this, just send me an email. Within a matter of 20 minutes, I had sent out 10 copies of that. I haven't had a chance to look at it this evening, but I got comments back from as far west as Gill and as close as Hopkinton saying, this is really important. This could be very helpful to us. So in addition to us trying to get support for an amendment that reflects what we won, quite frankly, other communities will probably benefit from this, because now there is case law. So that's just an update on where we are. MMA is still working on this. Rep. Haddad was taking it to the committee. So fingers crossed.
Thank you, Selectman Goulart. As I always do, I lied about not having input, and it's simply because I know, so I knew you were going to say something, Selectman Pacheco. I should just start saying yes and then let someone else go first so I can remember what I had to say. the town administrator and I did go to the community garden volunteer kickoff meeting. She went simply because my mind does not work fast enough to be able to take notes and like be able to tell people on the spot, like, no, you can't do that. No, that's not possible. So I thanked her for going. I really appreciated that.
Call monitor at
Yes,
the meeting.
well, not so much. It was more like we had a discussion and nothing was set in stone. So I feel like actually you were able to help shape what's possible in terms of the project. I know you did take back some of the ideas that they had back to speaking with the building commissioner. And upon further discussion with him, you had decided that, or there, we don't know the soil quality. There's never been like a soil test or anything over there. And so what the building commissioner said was that, and I'm not an expert on this, like I could not answer questions on it, but there is some sort of back to Eden method of you don't have to disturb the soil. It like naturally from this back to Eden method where you lay newspaper or paper without ink, so you don't get any potential cross contamination. It basically returns the soil back to its natural state naturally. So the group is exploring that. They need to devise a plan for the community garden by October. The reason is because they need to present that to the Agricultural Commission. Once the Agricultural Commission signs off on it, I assume that will come to the Board of Selectmen. And so I just wanted my colleagues to know that things are being worked out, work is being done, plans are being drawn up, and they will come before the boards. So the last vote that we took to have a community garden at 949 Somerset Avenue was not the last time you heard about it. We have two people that stepped up who are Scout moms, Molly Barr's mother, Jenna Montero, and also Tanya Patricio, who is an Eagle Scout mom. They're really taking the lead with this. So I will have more to report back once we hear their plans in October on the Agricultural Commission.
Selectman Pacheco, I got one for you. You can report on the award ceremony we went to at the VFW.
Oh, that's right. Selectman Pacheco, you have the floor.
Yeah, well, I want to get back to what you're talking about, the community garden.
Sure. Yep.
So I had a conversation with Mr. Ferry. So if you're planning on having gardens there for the springtime, this would be the time to cut the grass over there, he said, and mow it down. So if that's a request, he said he's willing to do it. So we have to take that into consideration. He also wants to make sure we know where the boundaries are. So we know what we're cutting.
And that was the topic. You know, I always leave things out. That was why we had the town administrator there. And she took notes. And obviously, one of the big questions that we had were the boundaries. And so we have that on our radar. In terms of the plans, they're going to use the GIS map for that. So that will sort of delineate what the boundaries are. But yes, they need to be physically delineated as well.
Yeah.
So with some sort of a markers, I should say.
We probably should have it surveyed.
Yes, right.
Even better.
Yep.
Yeah.
Good idea.
So are they talking about no dig then? Is that what they're talking about when they plant this? So you can use newspaper with ink on it. What you can use is newspaper with colored ink.
Okay.
It's an organic method that people use newspaper all the time. I use it, and you put mulch on top of it or compost or whatever, and that will kill the weeds, and then you're able to plant it. So we would do that in the fall so that next spring it can be planted. I have no idea whether you're talking about raised beds or what, but that's something that the commission would also want to consider. Getting to the awards meeting that we went to last, I believe it was last week on the 18th at the VFW, they had an award ceremony for Patrolman Steele. Is it Patrolman McGovern also? Is he a patrolman? Patrolman McGovern and Sergeant Cronin. And it was a very nice ceremony. Town administrator as well as our chairman of our board spoke. They did have some food for the attendees. It was more attendees there than actually from the town of Dayton, but Chief McDonald was also there. And it was I was very proud of our officers for what they did. Patrolman Steele jumping into the water, risking his own life, quite frankly, to save another human being is really beyond the call of duty. And he is to be commended, as we did in the past at one of our meetings. So I was proud to be there, and all three of us, all board members were there, as well as our town administrator. So it was a very nice ceremony. Too often, unfortunately, we hear bad things about bad cops. And we are fortunate that the police department that we have, that we can have good news, because there are good cops. And I would have to say that our police department has all good cops, good police officers. So I am very proud of them. And there's just too much of the bad stuff going on with some police departments, but we don't have that. So we're not defunding our police department or anything like that, but I was pleased to be there, and thank the rest of the board for being there also, as well as town administrator.
I thought it was a very solemn ceremony in the way that I'll call it military style, with the various the symbolism of the table, with that whole thing. That was really interesting.
Nice. It was really nice. It's an honor, and
Yeah.
I think the one thing you forgot to leave out, and I also forgot to leave out in my post about it on Facebook, was that we got adopted. Does everyone forget that?
That's
Go
right.
to yes,
They
I
adopted
think
our
that-
town.
I loved that. That was so, because we don't have a home. We don't have a place. And so it was really nice that they extended that. I echo Selectman Goulart's sentiments about how solemn and the tone was perfect about that empty table, which obviously, symbolizes prisoners of war and those that do not return from war, or anyone who's still missing. So I thought it was great. I was happy to be invited and happy to be there, and it was very lovely. Very lovely.
I agree.
Okay.
2020
Just for clarification.
I'm sorry, Selectman.
Just for clarification, it was a town that was adopted. It wasn't us personally.
Yes, no, yes.
My mother would be offended by that, although at times she was willing to put me up for adoption. So.
Well, they don't want
It's
us.
getting late.
They want us.
Yeah.
It's hilarious. Yes.
So I do agree with what Mrs. Goulart said. It was very solemn. It was very formal. They've obviously done something similar to this in the past, and it was just an honor to see our police officers be commended. And they have plaques, which I don't know if they're going to their homes or to the police station, but it'd be nice if they were at the police station so the public can see that.
In the
It's
community
really nice.
room.
It's really nice to know that veterans from Dayton can go to Taunton as
Yes.
their post.
Yep.
Yeah.
I don't know how we could get the word out, but I did tell my father, who's a veteran. I don't know if he'll go. I think he does actually go from time to time to that post.
We should let Don Hershey know that.
Yes, we should.
And possibly maybe Don could relay the message to Alice and maybe get that in the strawberry vine.
Yes, that's a good idea.
Yeah.
That would be good.
We want to take advantage of this adoption, right?
I'm gonna kick us out.
Well, we have.
Sure, Selectman
Yeah,
Pacheco.
we have approximately 400 veterans in town, so it's important that we get the word out.
Absolutely. And the last thing I will say is 2020 has not brought much good news. This was good news. So I want to thank the Post for having us, for adopting us, and for honoring our police officers. So thank you.
So I have some good news in the form of a thank you. I want to thank the Council on Aging for all the assistance they have provided to my husband in loaning equipment since he had the surgery. The last thing I borrowed was a cane, and it's great to have that equipment available. He came home with a walker, and it was recommended he have one on each floor, and I was able to borrow that. I didn't have to go out at our expense, and it's worked out very well. So Thank you very much, Council on Aging, and I'm sure we're not the only people that they've helped, but if anyone needs help in the form of medical equipment, just give them a call.
Thank you. And Selectman Goulart, we as always wish John the best and a speedy
you.
recovery, and he gets well soon.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Next is a review a notice regarding Massachusetts drought status. Do you want me to just summarize it? I did write a little.
Oh, we got to do the.
We skipped the Board of Health.
Did I? I'm so sorry. You know what? I crossed it off. I was happy about, I heard it, and I was happy for Mr. Tanis though. So we are going to recognize the Board of Health. Bear with me just a second. Can someone else? I can't flip through fast enough.
Yeah,
Selectman Goulart or Selectman Pacheco?
Yeah, we received a communication from the Board of Health that they've reorganized the Board of Health as of August 13, 2020. And they voted to reorganize as follows. Chairman is Mike Tanis, clerk is Tom Pyers, and the member is Kevin Bernardo.
Awesome. Well, congratulations, Mr. Tanis. And I want to also not just thank all our members, but also thank Mr. Pyers for his years of, I say it all the time, so I'm not going to start again, but just years of dedicated service, not just in his role as chairman of the Board of Health or even as a member of the Board of Health, but just in many capacities. So thank you to all of our Board of Health members and for everyone stepping up during the pandemic as well.
I think all the positions Tom has held, I almost think chairman of the Board of Health is probably the one he's held the longest, because even when we were a combined board, we used to, change annually.
Rotate.
And when we split the board off, he was appointed the chairman, and he's been, so congratulations to Matt and a big thank you to Tom.
Absolutely.
Yep.
So, and thank you for pointing me out that I had skipped that. My apologies. I certainly was not trying to slight our beloved Board of Health. Next is the status on the update on the drought status. Madam Administrator, I was just going to read a part that kind of explained everything. I don't know if you had a presentation on this.
I don't have a presentation. I think it's obvious to people just kind of in their life. We are in a drought. It's level 2 significant, and neighboring states around us are abnormally dry or in a moderate drought. And what this means is we must adopt and implement outdoor water use restrictions, but we're already doing that for most.
You don't even have to.
So, and there's you can't install new sod, seeding, and/or landscaping. And then they'll have some drought surcharges and seasonal water rates and water use reduction targets for all water users. So we're already sort of ahead of the curve, not for a good reason, but because we're running low on water. And the Dayton Water District, that sort of is ameliorated there. But if you have a well, you're obviously keeping on track of that for your own household. And then the North Dayton Water District will probably send out some communication to those folks. Just a notice, it's dry.
And this came from Weston and Sampson, who obviously we do a lot of business with. So another good engineering firm.
Yep. Well, it also means we can rely on it.
Exactly.
All right. Selectman Pacheco.
Yeah, if I could comment on this, some people in Dayton, and I'll include myself and my neighbor, had planned to put new lawns in certain parts of our yard. I had an area cleaned out this summer. I've had some loam put in. I've spread the loam. I bought the seed, and now I'm being told I can't water the seed. I haven't put the seed down because I was told that probably by September 1st for new lawns, that's the best time to put a lawn in, would be able to water that. But now it looks like it's going to be prevented. That's not going to go over too well with some people, including myself.
Mm-hmm.
I'm very conscious of water. Believe me. Ask my daughters. I've shut the water off when they've been taking showers. Gone down in the basement, shut the water off because I thought they were using too much water. So I see the look on you, Mallory.
Oh, bad.
So I'm very conscious of it. So I'm a little upset with this. I understand the reason behind it. specifically for Dayton, since we have a shortage of water to begin with because we're not pumping enough water, but it's going to be troubling for some people. So I just wanted to get that out there.
We're on that list too, because we've got, with this drought, I've got places in the backyard that are hard pan and there's no grass. It died and it's just dirt. And I had somebody look at it and they talked about putting in a lawn. I says, you can't do anything in Dayton until we get rain, you know? So we're gonna have a late lawn too. The other thing I would mention, when Mrs. Aaronstein was talking about water, anyone who goes down 138, you will notice the houses near the Somerset line on 138 have gorgeous lawns. They get water from the town of Somerset and there isn't a ban. So if anyone sees that, don't think, oh, the ban is off, because that's not Dayton water.
Well, and they're now going to have a ban because this is a statewide thing. So.
Yep.
Does anyone have anything under acknowledgements tonight?
No.
Okay, we'll move on to minutes. So I will entertain motions to approve minutes of the Board of Selectmen's March 11th, 2020 meeting, the joint meeting of the Emergency Preparedness Committee and the Board of Selectmen of March 23rd, 2020, the Board of Selectmen's meeting of April 22nd, 2020, and the Board of Selectmen's meeting of July 22nd, 2020.
So I have the normal question I ask every time.
Absolutely.
Have these minutes been changed since I know some of these we got way back when. Have these minutes been changed since then? Do you know?
They have not been changed.
Okay. I so move on those minutes being accepted for those 4 dates.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? The ayes have it and that motion passes. And
I'll make a motion to review the minutes for the Board of Selectmen's regular meeting of August 12th, 2020.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? The ayes have it. That motion passes. Selectman Goulart, approval of the warrants, please.
Mr. Chairman, I move that the following warrants be approved. Warrants dated August 19th, 8A-21 in the amount of $106,544.49 payroll. 8B-21 in the amount of $105, $281.93 account payable be approved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? The ayes have it and that motion passes.
Mr. Chairman, I move that the following warrants dated August the 26th be approved. 9A-21 in the amount of $106,319.18. 9B-21 in the amount of $22,490.44 payroll. 9C-21 in the amount of $214,382.27. And 9D-21 in the amount of $401.48. The last two being accounts payable be approved.
I second that.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? The ayes have it and that motion passes. Under public input, I don't see anything in the Zoom. Did we get any emails or calls since the last time?
No.
Yeah.
You didn't.
Awesome. Thank you. Well, not awesome. You know what I mean. Okay. And at this time, I will entertain motions to enter into executive session under Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 30A, Section 21A, Number 3, to discuss the strategy with respect to collective bargaining or litigation if an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining or litigating position of the public body and the chair so declares. I do. Clerical union contract negotiations.
I so move.
And number 6, I'm sorry, I didn't see this. To consider the purchase, exchange, lease, or value of real estate if the chair so declares that an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the negotiating position of the public body. I do. Boat ramp discussion.
I'll second the
I
motion.
so move.
Yeah, I'll second the motion.
Thank you. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye,
Roll call.
Aye.
Aye.
aye, aye.
Aye. Okay, everybody. So we are going to enter into executive session. Just give me one moment. I just have to stop the recording. So one moment. And thank you, public. Have a great night. And Cable, I hope you enjoyed your evening off.
Good night.
Good night.
Okay, we're good. Give me
Still
just
says
one.
live on